nerves are made of steel, balanced on the edges of everything we feel. It's gonna take all we've got just to make it through this night. Gotta feel it right through my skin, and it's cutting like a knife. Get ready to break the ice. Feels like time is standing still. Aim it right for your heart. Ready to take another spill. Only you can make it right. You can break the ice inside of me.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 200 of the Sit Down Zumock podcast. Episode 200 is here. Thank you. We did it. Episode 200. Since 2013, many incarnations, inconsistencies, ups and downs. We did it. We made it to episode 200. Thank you to everyone that made this possible. At the very end of this podcast, I give shout out and thanks to everyone that helped produce, book, guests that have come on, the many amazing guests to make this possible. I'm very excited to bring you this week's episode, episode 200. It's been in the works for quite some time. First of all, I want to give a shout out to John Farhan for that legendary song, Break the Ice, from the movie Rad, starring Bill Allen as Crew Jones, my favorite movie growing up as a child. Crew Jones, one of the greatest BMX riders of all time. He was on episode, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, 193 of the Sit Down Zumock podcast. Bill Allen himself. I wanted to come out the gate swinging. So we came out with Break the Ice. All right. Break the Ice. Right here on 98.5 WNCX. We got a double shot of Foreigner coming up at the top of the hour, including 2 tickets to Mark's Great American Rib Burn-Off. All right. Classic rock, radio hack, DJ. Seriously, if you're new to the podcast, thanks for subscribing. Thanks you for tuning in. You can go back to the catalog, listen to all the great episodes. You could sign up for my Patreon. And thank you to everyone that's been signing up the past couple weeks. It's been crazy. The numbers have been going through the roof. I appreciate all your support. Go to the archives. You could see past episodes, but you could sign up for the podcast on Patreon to hear additional episodes, additional content. You get the episode a week early. So that's at patreon.com/sitdownzumock. Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I put a thing up on Twitter. I put it up on Facebook. Go, who do you want to hear on the episode 200 of the Sit Down Zumock podcast? What guests do you want to hear? Who are your top 5? I'll give you the top 7. And I whittle it down to 5 because top 7, I could not get 2 of these guests. One's dead, Jan Michael Vincent. Unfortunately, he died a year ago. I guess they reported on it like 2 months later, but I could not get Jan Michael Vincent. That was always my bucket list guest, my dear friend, White Flavors, who's been on the podcast, who's done a lot of amazing work. We did the Hall & Oates, hardcore Hall & Oates song together. We were going to drive to Pittsburgh, Mississippi to interview Jan Michael Vincent when he lost his leg, and it never happened. Unfortunately, we could not get the great Jan Michael Vincent because he's dead. Number 2 was Artie Lang. Artie was a hero of mine because starting out, I wanted to be a comedian on the radio. I just didn't want to be a comedian. I wanted to be a comedian on the radio. I wanted that both. I didn't want just a comic or the radio. I want to be a comedian on the radio. Artie Lang was a guy I looked up to. Flawed individual, told crazy stories, lovable loser. Love Artie Lang, but I couldn't get Artie done. So the next 5, I got it done. Another comedian on the radio, someone I looked up to, a guy I've watched his career blow up. Somebody in the very beginning, I was like trying to emulate. The great Jim Norton from Jim and Sam, the legendary Opie and Anthony. He's in a Martin Scorsese film. He's in The Irishman. He's got hour specials, #1 bestsellers. Jim Norton is on the podcast. You want to keep it going? Dan Soder, one of the most entertaining people of all time. I've said this time and time again on social media, radio shows, podcasts. There's nobody more entertaining than Dan Soder. You can walk into a random room and he'll have you laughing. He's just an entertaining dude. Fantastic on the radio. He has a great show on Sirius XM, Comedy Central Radio with Big Jay Okerson, who's been on the podcast before, The Bonfire. He's on episode 200. You wanted him? You got him. The great Jim Florentine. How can I do the Sit Down Zumock podcast without the great Jim Florentine, who's probably been on more than anyone besides Godfrey? You wanted him? You got him. Florentine is on episode 200. Kevin Brennan from Misery Loves Company. A lot of people say Kevin Brennan ruined my career. He became the mentor that I should never have had. He's taught me many ways of the force of burning bridges and pissing people off. But I got to be honest with you, no one makes me laugh harder than Kevin Brennan, one of the most entertaining people ever, and just a good dude at the end of the day. Keeps it real, calls it out. I respect a guy like Kevin Brennan. I could not do this episode. I'm glad he agreed to do it. But out of the gate, I come swinging, people. A guy who doesn't do very many podcasts, a legend in the business. And I've been on record to saying he's one of the best interviewers of all time. One of the best radio personalities and a killer comic. You saw him on tour, Creeps with Kids. Hopefully it comes back, comes out strong. Robert Kelly, Rich Voss. And I have, of course, talking about from the Bennington show, formerly of Ron and Fez, Ron and Ron. The great Ron Bennington is on the Sit Down Zumock podcast, episode 200. You're welcome. You're welcome. I came through. I can't thank these people enough. I reached out. They all agreed, and this is a phenomenal episode. I'm excited to bring it to you. Shout out to Paul, the Comedy Pop-Up Network, out of L.A. I know we're going through a weird time. If you can support all the shows on Comedy Pop-Up, there's all kinds of great podcasting shows during this time of quarantine where we're looking for stuff. We're looking for an escape just to get away from things. But check out all those shows. Hit subscribe. Give them a follow. Guys, I don't want to keep you waiting. We're going to get to it right now. Out of the gate, swinging hardcore from New York City, the great Ron Bennington.
Sit down, Zumock.
Sit down, Zumock.
I've got at least one pair of good shoes in the back of the closet somewhere.
All right, on the Lawson's Chip Dip Hotline is the great Ron Bennington. Ron, I can't thank you enough for doing episode 200.
How difficult was it for me and you just to put together a phone call? I'm not kidding, dude. I'm living like I'm at high altitude. Like every single thing is difficult for me to pull off. It's hard for me to find time in 21 hours a day that I have free to go, I'm going to watch a TV show.
Well, I put together a bucket list of comics and people I wanted to speak with. Luckily, everyone agreed to it, but the one person I wanted on here that I could not get on was actor Jen Michael Vincent because he's dead.
Oh, God. How I loved him, though. The baby blue Marine. You know, it should come up more. Big Wednesday is one of the most underrated films of all time.
Earl Schenkel, comedian out of Los Angeles, he's obsessed with that movie. You got William Catt, you got Gary Busey, and it's about surfers.
Yeah, and it was like really more of a film, like a surfing film, than a surfing movie. You know what I mean? Like it was really put together in a way that they wanted to really look at these guys. And 99% of surfing movies are, you know, Moondoggy like Skidget. And obviously it bombed. Nobody wanted to see it. It's totally underrated.
Did it get like more like kind of cult favorite in the VHS days? Is because
it did, but it's still like the fact that, you know, not everybody talks about. I mean, there's a lot of films that are cult favorites that, everybody's kind of caught up with. But you could still bring that movie up to people, and they're like, what?
Yeah. When I think of Jan Michael Vincent, though, I like the movie Hooper and White Line Fever.
Oh, sure. I just watched a movie that he was in with Charles Bronson.
The Mechanic.
The Mechanic, yeah. It was just rerunning. And this is, when you go back and watch that, you can see how lost we were for a while with dialogue. You know what I mean? Like, just crazy kind of groovy talk, but about murder. You know what I mean? You're just like, I don't know what happened there in the early 70s.
I was just talking to Florentine about Charles Bronson. They don't make an actor like that anymore. Just that guy's guy.
He was so strange because, he was a man's man, yet he grew the most feminine mustache and beard in history. He seems like, when you look at his face, he's oddly like an Eskimo woman or a Samoan woman. I mean, he looks like a strong, tough woman in the face. And no, that guy wouldn't be an actor because he had zero range, and yet you could never take your eyes off him.
I'm looking at a photo of him right now. He does look like he's transitioning.
Yes, there is a late life transition that takes place, and he never looked young. I don't know what his age ever was at any given time, but there was never where you're like, oh, look how young Charles Bronson was in those days.
Now, I brought up White Line Fever with Jan Michael Vincent. There was a thing with 70s truckers films that were huge. You had Convoy, Smokey and the Bandit, Breaker with Chuck Norris, Highballin' with Peter Fonda, Every Which Way But Loose.
Well, and the funny thing is, that was a subgenre of the Motorhead kind of film, right? That, they were just 100% car films. And then they're like, and the subgenre of that will be the trucker film. But yeah, they were for a little while considered like modern day cowboys. They were the last free people that we had because they drove a rake. That was it. That was what they brought to the table.
Jerry Reed really kind of got into that with Smokey and the Bandit, and then he did Highballin'. He really loved being a trucker in those movies.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Jerry Reed did it well. I mean, he was really a triple threat, wasn't he?
If you go down a YouTube rabbit hole of him playing guitar, he was phenomenal.
He was unbelievable. But you know what's really true is, like, most people that make it to that kind of place are much more talented than you think. You know what I mean? And there was a ton of people that were almost a joke. And yet you're like, oh, wait, no, he's a fucking 1% talent. And he was one of those guys that, like you said, he could write music. It might not necessarily be your kind of music. Or the way that he played the guitar wasn't necessarily your way. But then you're like, oh, no, that takes a ton of talent to pull that off. Who
was the other, like Christopher Christopherson?
I think Chris Christopherson is one of the greatest fucking writers of all time. He wrote Me and Bobby McGee, Help Me Make It Through the Night. He did all this, these really, like, people like Dylan think Chris Christopherson is great.
Really?
Now, yeah. I mean, the interesting thing about when he would write those songs, and go back and listen to, like, Sunday Morning Coming Down and all that kind of stuff, and he would write a song and, somebody else would normally have a hit with it. But then you would find out, this is the way country music was in those days, it would end up with like 400 different people putting that song on an album. Like, if you were a country star in the 70s, you just recorded every hit. It was almost like you would record something that was a number one hit that week by somebody else. They just didn't give a shit.
That's funny. I mean, obviously this year we lost Kenny Rogers, but he was also another guy who would act in film. Like, Six Pack, The Gambler.
Yeah, here's the thing about Kenny Rogers, too. He was kind of a rock and roll hit at first, right? Like during the 60s, he had a band that had a number one hit or at least a top 10 hit, and then went in that direction to becoming a country star in the 70s. There's a song he did that was about drugs called Just Dropped In to See What Condition My Condition Was In.
Oh, yeah, of course. That was in Breaking Bad, that song.
Now, he then moved over and became like a major country star at a time where you weren't supposed to be like a guy who understood drugs if you were doing, country. But when I was a kid, I was working as a bellman at this little hotel, and Kenny Rogers came in. It was literally more of a motel than a hotel. And I had to go and drop him off at the airport, and he pulled out a $5 and handed it to me at a day when nobody threw you a $5 for a 5-minute ride. So from that point on, I'm like, I would always defend him. But then I'm like, no, fuck you. Kenny Rogers is a good guy.
You were Team Rogers.
100%.
I recently had Paul Michael Glazer on the podcast, and I was trying to get him to name the greatest cop duos of all time, and he was very modest, and he has such an affection for Starsky and Hutch. Do you believe they were the greatest cop duo of all time on TV?
Well, first of all, let me just say congratulations.
Oh, it's huge.
To have him. I would say if I had to pick the greatest of all time, and it was the first time there was a black guy and a white guy together, and that would be I Spy. Robert Conrad and the great Bill Cosby. I don't know whatever became of him, but that was this is going to show you how weird the country was. People would be like, look at these two guys. One's black and one was white, and they're not fighting, And you know what? That black guy's kind of funny. Maybe I shouldn't hate people for being a different color.
And then Riggs and Murtaugh screwed it up when they were just fighting the whole time.
They were fighting, but you know what? It's because they really didn't know how to hug, because they loved each other. They really did. I mean, you could feel it. And Riggs was happy enough to go over and eat dinner with those folks. And you're like, God damn it, that's really nice.
That's
Maybe
right.
I should be a better person.
Yeah, and just have dinner with, people that look different than you.
By the way that this interview is going, we sound like the two loneliest people ever. just trying to connect and share memories.
I'm just trying my hardest not to talk about the reality of the situation. It's just, painful. And I've been listening to your show as of late, and you're doing it from home, right?
Yeah, man. Everybody, none of us have literally seen each other in a month. And I remember when we left the studio, and they go, okay, next week you're going to record this from home. Maybe it'll just be 2 or 3 days. They sent out equipment to everyone. And just as we were leaving, I go, let's all take a picture together. And you can look at that picture now, and it's heartbreaking because you can see this confusion in our eyes. Like, is everything going to be all right? But we're all kind of smiling and being together. And, that instinct was smart because God knows when that team is going to be physically together again. And who can believe that? It's so fucking nuts.
I mean, you might not ever see Vito again.
It's a very good chance of that. It's a very good chance that none of that happens. I just saw it. Because I get calls about, the Creep Show, hey, does this date work for you in November? You know what I mean? I would just go, yeah, it does. Because... But there's nothing about me that makes me feel like there's going to be another theater show this year. It just doesn't feel that way.
Yeah, I was talking to Kevin Brennan on the phone, and he was talking about the Gulf War and about how comedy took a hit then. So I can only imagine, especially in New York of all places, when this thing's going to bounce back for everybody. I don't know. I don't have an answer.
I know. I mean, I remember when Trump said, maybe, he goes, we'll reopen everything on Easter. And we all went, Easter? That's too far away. You know what I mean? Like, what are we talking about now? 3 weeks? And now no one can, now we get it that we have no idea that this thing is way less in our power than we even thought at all, even for a minute, you know?
Yeah.
But I'm amazed. Like, some people complain, like, oh, Dak Prescott threw a party. You know what I mean? Look how irresponsible. I'm amazed as many people are following this that are. It's stunning to me.
How everybody just kind of fell in line?
Yeah, everybody is like, yeah, I'm social distancing. I'm staying 6 feet away from my own family. And I'm like, really? Okay. Because it just seems like weirdly un-American to go along with this. You know what I mean? And it goes to show you just how fucked up our American values always were, that we don't think of community first. It's just not in us, you know?
Yeah, like you would think someone wants to rebel and rage against the machine right now, but that doesn't seem to be the case.
No, it doesn't. I mean, we've got to be 90 to 95% of people going, yeah, this is the smart thing to do. I mean, New York City looks so insane. I mean, I could picture a lot of things, but an empty Fifth Avenue during the middle of the day, an empty Times Square at 7 o'clock at night. There was a time that I couldn't ever believe that. And I'm talking about, this was 5 weeks ago. I would thought that would never happen. Right.
So it's probably going to be a horrible time if you ever wanted to open Ron Bennington's comedy scene back up again. It's probably not going to happen.
Either that, or we're going to think of a new way to do it. I would like to see, like, every table is just a pod. You know what I mean? Just some kind of a weird deal where, you know, and that's what you can see people thrashing around trying to do Zoom shows and shit, you know, and you're like, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Taking a look at it. Because I never was even that big of a fan of watching comedy on TV. You know what I mean? I think it's a totally different experience of watching someone's special and being in the room when that person's crushing it. You know what I mean? Like having the kind of set where you're going, oh shit, I could have thought of that. You know, I could have pulled that off.
Yeah, the only way I can digest comedy, obviously live, number one, and audio. I had Mike Vecchione on the podcast yesterday, and his album is one of the greatest comedy albums, in my opinion, A Different Kind of Thoughtful. I loved it. It's 85 minutes of just pure jokes, but I almost like theater of the mind. I like listening to it and taking it that way instead of watching someone on a TV do it. I don't know why.
Well, you know why? Because his material is so well written and all of his pauses are really, really thought out that, you know, it's perfect for theater of the mind. But to watch that boring, dull man, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Vecchione with his... How can you be ethnic and bland at the same time? Even when I would be in the room with him, I would normally turn away, you know, and have my back to him and just close my eyes and think of a more charismatic person doing that great material.
So you almost have to turn your back to him on stage to get a better... Okay, I get it.
Yeah.
We also came up with the idea he has chiseled fat, which is pretty interesting.
That is interesting, and it is true. He looks like he's a very in shape man, but he just keeps a little layer above it all. And I think that's going to help him when he does get sick. By the way, I can't believe that he's in a relationship. I talked to him the other day, and he's like, yes, I'm with a woman. And I'm like, what?
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah, he's quarantined with a woman.
Oh.
He's quarantined with a great woman, and then his roommate, Dan Soder, who those two, you know, were the odd couple for 10 years or whatever, Dan Soder's Florentine with a woman.
Yeah, I was going to ask, was it Soder in a wig? But it turns out they both have women.
It's like those guys end at like the end of Superbad, where after this long of being the love of each other's lives for so much during middle school and high school, they both went off in the opposite directions.
I didn't know that. I should have brought that up to him, but good on Mike Vecchione. He's always looking for that special someone, and it worked out, I guess.
I guess, but how's he going to ruin it?
That's true. I mean, that's a whole new album right there. I put a thing out to my listeners because I said I was gonna have you on, and a guy named Steven Torres, he wants to know who your comedic influence are and if you ever had thoughts on doing a proper stand-up special. Also, he wanted to know, did you expect Jim Breuer to be as big as he is?
Well, first of all, you get one question, Torres. One. I feel like I should be doing the fucking Torres podcast now. He's got so many questions for me. Get off my back, bitch. The thing with, and I'm sure you've met a lot of people in their open mic nights thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But Brewer definitely had, when he used to come in and do this stuff, he had enough charisma and energy where you're like, oh, yeah, sure, come back. You know what I mean? And, not only can you do the open mic thing, but you can come back and do a few minutes on a Friday or a Saturday or something. And that is about as much as you can expect to give somebody an opportunity, and it's about as much as an opportunity as a person who is going to be good needs. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, the last thing that I ever thought that you should ever do with a young person is start trying to mold them, right?
Right.
Because do you think I would have helped Brewer become a better brewer? Absolutely not. You know what I mean? Like, what he needed was oxygen, what he needed was space. But I wasn't thinking, hey, this kid could go somewhere. I just thought he's not as terrible as 99.9% of the other people doing this in this town at this time. But it's all you want is, and all you need at that point is some stage time. You know what I mean?
Right.
And when you're not in New York or Los Angeles, and you know what it's like to be at a market where when your locals do get good, they leave. You know what I mean? You just hope to catch some of these guys where you can use them to fill a little bit of your show from time to time.
Right. Now, I know you only got one question in there, but are you ever think about doing like a special?
Well, I think the short answer is I really didn't give a shit either way. I mean, but the Creep Store was so much fun that I can't even believe that I got to do that after taking 20-some years off. You know what I mean? I can't believe that I got to go out and play theaters with these fucking killers. So, obviously people had talked to me because they know there could be, a chance to sell it on some platform. And I was letting it organically take place. You know what I mean? What I was looking to do was just to keep killing, but at a longer period of time without being some, I hate to say it, but Mike Vecchio nerd sitting there with a pad and paper, like with Gary Goldman quotes up on the thing where I could push myself harder and harder because I'm way too lazy, way too fucking lazy. But now, obviously, it feels like everything that was just doing so great for me on that tour just seems old and dated overnight. That even if I put that stuff out as if it came out now, who wants to fucking see this pre-pandemic set? And I also, I don't know where the special is. You know what I mean? I don't know. I have friends of mine that have specials that I couldn't sit through it, let alone someone I don't care about.
You know, I'm actually on the Creeps with Kids tour website right now, and Saturday, April 11th, would have been your homecoming to Tampa, Florida. You guys were supposed to do the Star Center.
Yeah, it was a sold-out show, and everybody was, you know, I had all kinds of people that I know and haven't seen in years who are like, I'm coming to this show. I hope we can do an after party. You know, it was really going to be a fun thing. And I got to tell you, I mean, this Creeps tour was so just funny and hot. And 4 guys who somehow fit together, yet did not step on each other in any way. You know, I was so happy to be taking that tour down there.
Now, I was talking to Florentine, and he's like, there's some nights he's just like, Ron is just killing it. He goes, I don't want to be Bobby Kelly closing this thing out. I'm glad I'm going before him.
Yeah. Well, Bobby was always kind enough to go, would you rather close? And I'm like, no, you put this tour together. Like, I don't see any of us having any kind of ego where the closing goes, because then all 4 of us come out at the end. But Bobby's so high energy, and he's so genius in his own way, in his own unique way, that I really do feel like we had put this thing together. It's almost like a band where everybody gets a chance to really solo, and you know what I mean? You're not doing the same kind of stuff, but the music comes together. It was just a very lucky thing. And like I said, Kelly, the Creeps idea was definitely his. The putting this together with CAA. I mean, we're going out and doing these tours where you don't have a concern about, is this going to be marketed correctly? Am I going to have to do this? And you know, the tour was so professionally done. Deborah was the tour manager, so she worried about 100% of all the annoying stuff. And it just really, really was such a great thing. And you know, Florentine is just like such a goddamn pro. You know what I mean? Just every single night, he's just going out and nailing these sets. And then, unlike the other 2, he's a pleasant person to be around. You know what I mean? The other 2 are just at each other, just constantly picking at each other, and I would have to walk away from them. But Florentine can talk outside of himself, you know? Like, trust me, if you asked Rich Ross about Jerry Reed, he would have screamed out in the middle, I'm not Jerry Reed. Why am I talking about him? Who cares about Kenny Ryan? What about me and my little fucking life and everything that I care about?
Like his archery.
Yeah. And then those guys would be like, hey, let's all go to a diner. And I would go, absolutely not. I want to keep this tour together. And if I spend any outside time with you, I will hate you.
Yeah, that's smart to do. You guys were like the chicken foot of comedy. Like you had Joe Satriani, you got Sammy Hagar, Michael Anthony, and Chad Smith. Just 4 personalities that come together to just rock out theaters.
Yeah, and you had to do that. And let me tell you something. You realize that there's a reason that all those guys were thrown out of other bands. So, you know what I mean? Because there's so much more of this than just the show, you know? Travel. I don't know how you guys travel the way you do. I would come back after a weekend and be exhausted to do my radio show. The amount of travel and, you know, pandemic spreading that comics have done.
Well, I've been a hardcore road comic for the past 8 years, and I realized last year I was in 32 states, and this time off has actually been a good reflection on what the hell am I doing? Why am I doing this myself?
You know, you just wasted 8 years of your life.
I know.
Horrifying.
That's why I'm moving to Florida, Ron. I was going to move to New York until the apocalypse, and now I'm moving to Florida. I'm going to be a Florida comic.
What part of Florida?
I don't know yet. I'm thinking Tampa because I like the comedy club down there, Side Splitters, and I like Mike Calta, and I have friends there, and it's a cheap flight to New York from there.
But here's the thing. How can you handle the amount of mess that it takes to live in that town? I mean, you really have to be in meth shape to be able to live in Tampa Bay, or as you guys now call it, Tampa Bay, after the great Tom Brady.
Yeah, if Tom Brady goes there, I'm going there. Why not? Kevin Brennan's moving to Florida too.
What part?
He's I think Boca Raton area.
Yeah.
Because
I mean, at least that has a tie-in. You know what I mean, to people who move fast. I mean, I guess we're all going to end up in Florida sooner or later.
at one point, you know.
Yeah. I went there when I was like 21, so I mean, I had set myself up to drop out very, very early.
So you went from Philly to Florida?
Yeah, I mean, I had bounced around doing a couple of things before that full move, but yeah, that's what I did as a kid, and I was going to work in the hotel business down there. And I was, but I was also got very caught up in gig culture. There's a lot of, hey, would you host this shitty thing at the pool for a couple $100? You know what I mean? Like, there's always that opportunity. You're doing a naughty nighty contest at 2 o'clock in the morning. Florida's fucking great. It's just a lot of fun. I think you and Brennan are going to be so happy down there.
Well, we're going to watch it from afar for New York to work itself out and possibly move back. But I think Florida's a nice time out and try to figure things out. That's my opinion. I don't know.
How many years do you think it's going to be altogether before it gets to, works out?
Man, there's so much information coming out, especially, in the city there. Because like Norman and those guys, they're going to get the top gigs, and they're going to try to sell tickets there to keep these comedy. I don't know. Maybe a year?
I don't think any of us get back to normal until there's a vaccine. You know what I mean? No amount of testing and trying to make sure. None of that matters. You got to have a vaccine. That's it. At one time, all people thought about in this country was polio. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
We never did in our lifetime. But my mother, she was like, I don't want you swimming in still water. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I don't want you to be in a lake. You got to be in the ocean, or, you got to be in a river. Water that moves. And I'm like, you're a crazy woman. But now it's because I've, figured out she was a kid when there was polio. So you could dive in a lake, get some, get a disease, and you couldn't walk again. That doesn't leave you. You know what I mean? And that's the thing. You got to have a vaccine before people chill out at all.
Yeah, that's going to be the Netflix movie, too, of the coronavirus, the race for the vaccine and all the people behind the scenes trying to come up with it.
Dude, here's what I would do right now. You take all the countries in the world, they put up money, and we say $1 trillion. The person who comes up with the vaccine will be the richest person that ever lived. $1 trillion. You'd have guys trying to work on this fucking vaccine in their garage. You know what I mean?
I would try to work on one.
Yeah, why not? For $1 trillion?
Yeah, the guy who comes up with the vaccine's gonna be what's his name, Robert O'Neill, who killed Bin Laden. They're just gonna be heroes for the rest of their lives. Right,
that's exactly right. Then you're gonna be at a bar, you'll meet a girl, and you're like, "Hey, how you feeling? You okay? You feel like the vaccine's worked out for you? That was mine." It'll be like false flag. Like you're just going to go around and take credit for it for the rest of your life.
I got one more question before I let you go, and
okay.
This is a fan question. It's from Steve.
Yeah.
And he wants to know: do you ever have any contact with Ron Diaz anymore?
Well, it's everybody has kind of gone off and went their own way. The thing about men is, unless you are working on a project you kind of, what are you going to talk about? Your kids? You know what I mean? So it doesn't necessarily mean that anybody has any negative feelings. We all love that show that we did. But, neither one of us is nostalgic. So you don't end up talking to people every day. But, if you don't have a project going and you're not drinking, why would two adult men be together? What is that, brunch? You know what I mean? Like at the very at the very least, you got to be putting a fence up. You know what I mean? You got to be going fishing. You have to physically do something. So, I mean, we were both very happy that we had that show. It was all great and fun. And then you go off and do other things. But, there's one of the things about this pandemic. You wish everybody good. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
Just think of how many people that, you disagreed with about something. Now you're like, who cares? I hope everybody's healthy. I'll tell you, I've never done a thing where it's like, hey, a listener has a question. This is the first, Chad.
This is the first in all your years of broadcasting?
Yeah, I would never let a listener have a fucking question.
What?
That's just me, though.
You don't do a lot of podcasts, so I really wanted to open it up to people, and so this is quite a treat for everybody.
Well, let's all remember that, okay? What I've given you tonight is a wonderful treat, and this is it. And you are right. All I ever do is turn down podcasts. And look how hard it was for me and you to connect, even though we have nothing going on right now. It was still like, I don't know, does that work? Is that too late? Is that too early? Thank you so much, buddy.
No, thank you for doing episode 200, Ron. I love you to death. Be safe, and I'll see you soon.
Part of the 200. All right, peace.
All right, brother. All right, that was Ron Bennington, everybody, on the Lawson's Chip Dip Hotline. Sit Down Zumock. How cool was that? Ron Bennington on the Sit Down Zumock podcast. Radio legend. If you were to ask me 10 years ago, would Ron Bennington be on your podcast? I'd be like, hell no, he doesn't even know who I am. And here it is, episode 200. He's there. One of my comedy goals early on, I wrote down a bunch of comedy goals. One of them was to get on Ron and Fez, and that never happened. Fez ended up retiring. So I said, okay, I'm going to get on Bennington, and I got booked. I don't remember how I got booked, but I got booked. And I was really giddy about it. And I said, I'm coming in swinging. I'm coming in prepared. Because the one thing I do well is when I ever get booked for a radio show that I want to do or a podcast, I prepare myself and I bring it. Like when I got the Crab Feast, the legendary podcast with Jay Larson and Ryan Sickler, I was like, I love this podcast. I'm a fan of this podcast. I want to bring it. I want to be a memorable episode, and I did. I brought it. Sickler himself said I'm the Crab Feast Hall of Fame. I probably would have been back on the Crab Feast. He brought me back to the Honeydew. And, yeah, because I love that medium. I love the radio audio medium as a comic. That's the one thing I wanted to do in this business is be a comic on the radio. Artie Lang, Jim Norton, those were the guys. I wanted to be those guys. Fucked up dudes who were hilarious, that did radio, and that went on stage that night. That was always my goal, and I fulfilled those goals. And I got to do Bennington, and I brought it. I killed it in the room. All my friends were listening and said, you were awesome. I had fans tweeting at me. And next thing you know, I'm a regular on the show. So that's one of the thrills of my comedy career is to be a regular on his show and to be friends with Ron now. That's one of the cool things. He took a liking to me, and it's not lost upon me. Like I said, I brought up Jim Norton earlier about comics on the radio. I watched Jim Norton from afar. I watched his popularity grow. I watched his Netflix specials. I watched him film his Netflix special in Cleveland. It was my first year in radio. At the time, it was just me and Alan Cox. We were on the radio. We didn't have Erica at the time. It was just me and Alan. And Jim was filming his Netflix special in Cleveland. It was already sold out. And I said, I want to get Jim on the show. It'd be, It'd be a huge honor to have him on. I'm such a fan. And I reached out through some connections. He agreed to do it. And he came on the show. He was great. Him and Club Soda Kenny, and we went to the show that evening. And I've always watched Jim from afar. I've always admired him. His work ethic is undeniable. His body of work is undeniable. So when I wanted to do episode 200, I was like, I got to get Jim Norton on. I got to get Ron Bennington on. And sure enough, they both agreed. So let's get to my conversation with the great Jim Norton right now.
Hey, buddy, how you doing?
Jim, how are you?
I'm good, Chuck. How's everything?
Good. I'm going to get right into it, if that's good with you.
Yeah, man. Yeah, of course.
Okay, on the phone right now is a comedian, published author, radio host, one of my favorite people of all time. And when I was doing the 200th episode, I was racking my brain, like, who do I want? And I got it down to a list of 4. And Jim has been so influential in why I'm doing what I'm doing today. And I can't thank you enough for doing this episode, Jim.
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate it, and that's nice to hear. It means a lot. Thanks, Chuck.
Now, you obviously started a long time ago, but did you ever see yourself when you were a young boy as in Jersey doing open mics that one day you would be a published author, a radio personality in a Martin Scorsese film, and have an internet character that sells out theaters?
You know, it's funny. It's like yes and no. Like when you start, you always see yourself doing big things. I'm like, someday I'm going to be really famous. I'm going to do all this stuff. And then there's the other half of me that said, you're going to be a complete failure and you're going to go nowhere and nothing's ever going to happen. So I could never get a consistent fantasy going. It was either I'm going to be great and my life is going to be great, or I'm going to absolutely fail and blow my brains out before I'm 30. So there was never any consistency.
And, I mean, you've been at it for so long, you still stay relevant and you constantly reinvent yourself. It's crazy because I was going through your IMDb and all your history. I mean, you've done so much. Do you ever give yourself a chance to reflect on what you've done?
No, it's like I think I'm a typical comic. You know how we think. It's like I never look at it like I always feel like I'm one moment away from absolute failure. Like I know I've had a decent career, but like you know how it is. You always look like, oh my God, there's nothing happening. I'm fucking finished. There's nothing happening. I'm done. It's a constant state of panic. Once in a while, if I look back and go, all right, well, you did a few specials and you did this, or like as a person who's not dumb, I'll go, all right, I can see that those are good things to have done. But it feels like there's just nothing in front of me, and I'm constantly like stepping off a cliff, and then something happens to land in front of me that I can stand on. You know what I mean? It never feels like I have any future in anything.
That's unbelievable that you still have that feeling all these years later. What was it like? What was it like in the early years, starting out with Florentine? What were those days like riding around with Bob Levy? Do you still have fond memories of that?
Love Bob Levy. Yeah, it's crazy. Like I still love all those guys. Like when the first time I met Jim, it was. I guess it was 1990. I started in April of 1990, and I met him right around then. It might have been right before I went on. So it was early 1990. And I remember thinking he was a complete ass. Like, you know, because this guy, Pat Gaynor, introduced us. He's like, this is Jim, and he had long hair. And I'm like, what a fool. Snakeskin boots. I'm like, this guy sucks. But then I talked to him, and he was great. Like, he was a really nice guy. And Jim helped me so much. Like, Jim is a really giving person. Like, he would bring me to open mics, and he would talk well about me. And then I met Levy, and I absolutely fucking idolized Levy because I couldn't believe a guy was being so fast and so funny and so ruthless on stage and so fearless. And Bobby, like, you know, thank God for Bob's alcoholism because it, like, got me a lot of gigs because Bob wanted to get drunk at the shows. So he's like, I kind of like Norton. So I would drive him to gigs, and the fact that I didn't drink helped a lot. And so Levy really did a lot for my career. And Florentine, I can really never repay the debt to those guys. And Otto, you know, Otto was such a big influence on me. And I loved him even right before I started stand-up. I think I heard of Otto for the first time. So Otto never drove a car in his life. So I would pick him up I loved him so much. I would drive to Queens from New Jersey, Central Jersey, and then go back down to Delaware, and then drive to my parents' house, and Otto would stay over, and I'd take him to the train station the next day. So Otto spent a lot of nights at my house because I didn't want to drive back to Queens from New Jersey at 3:30 in the morning, But, yeah, those guys, those are great memories, man. I have great memories of all those guys. I love them.
Now, I know the story, but the audience might not know, my audience, but tell me about the first time you and Jim met Dice at the Comedy Store, because that was a big part of your life. How that all came together.
It's funny you asked about that. I literally just found photos from that weekend. That was 1997. We were going out there to do the Louis Anderson show in Santa Monica, the Santa Monica Pier, and none of us had any money in those days. It was we shared a room. It was a hotel called the Wyndham Village, which is now called the London Hotel. And in one room, it was myself, Florentine, Rich Franchese, and Lenny Marcus. We all shared a hotel room. So Maureen Tarrant was my manager at the time. And I think we had like a night or two before we taped. We needed 7 clean minutes. So she called me. She's like, I got you a spot at the Comedy Store. And I think I was supposed to do something, but I went and did my 7-minute spot. And right before I went on, Dice walked in. And I'd never met Dice, and me and Jim fucking idolized Dice. We loved him.
Were you guys starstruck?
And, Jim wasn't there. Jim was actually not with me in the moment. I was there. Oh, I was blown away when I saw Dice walk in. And I remember Frankie Pace and a bunch of guys. Nobody wanted to go on after Dice. And the way it works in the Comedy Store is the piano player gives your name to the guy on stage, and the guy on stage will bring you on. So I told people, like, yeah, I'd love to follow Dice. Like, I knew I was going to fucking tank, but I was like, fuck it. Just to have Dice bring me on, I'll get to meet him for a half second. So Dice is on stage. He's fucking murdering. And there was none of us had cell phones. It's 1997. So I called Florentine from a payphone. I think I called the hotel. Or maybe he did have a flip phone. I don't think he did. But now that I'm thinking of it, if I called him, maybe he did. But I know I didn't because I called him from a payphone. And I held the phone up, and Dice was on stage. So Jim's like, where the fuck are you? I'm like, I'm at the Comedy Store. So Florentine comes. Dice is finished. And he goes, all right, who's next? And then the piano player goes, Jim Norton. And Dice was such a cock. He's like, oh, yeah, this guy's great. Oh, you're going to love him. It was so obvious that he had no idea who the fuck I was. And I was such a fucking weasel. I had like a Lakers jacket. I figured that would make the LA crowd like me. I was such a little hump. I was such a fucking little hump. And Dice fucking brings me on. And I really bombed. Like, I knew I would bomb after Dice. But I bombed so terribly, and I didn't care because I was like, I followed Dice. I knew this was a great story, and I came off stage, and Florentine and Dice are talking. So then I walk over, and Dice is really nice to me, and we're all having a conversation. And, like, Jim and I love the albums, The Day the Laughter Died, The Day the Laughter Died Part 2.
Oh, yeah.
So we started talking to Dice about how absurd those albums were. Like, we were just kind of joking with him, like, what a terrible joke that was. But he knew that we loved him, and he laughed, and he loved how much we loved his albums. So Dice takes us into the back of the Comedy Store, and he goes, you guys got to go up and do this on stage. So the fucking three of us are writing, me and Florentine are writing, like, awful Dice jokes that that were terrible jokes that we knew would bomb, but we loved. And it's funny. This is why it's funny you mentioned this, Chad. I probably 4 or 5 days ago, no, maybe 2 weeks ago now, I was going through stuff, and I just found a bunch of these original notes. I have a bunch of these notes that I made on that night.
Oh, wow.
And if I can find one, I'll read it to you right now. As I'm talking to you, I'm looking through my computer, and I'm looking at pictures of me and Florentine from that weekend. So we wrote all these notes, and then Dice had us go on stage and do these jokes. And obviously we did fucking terribly. The MC, because I had already been on, and I had bombed. I had bombed horribly. So the MC brings us on as Jim and Jim. And we went on and just deadpanned. It was like before alternative comedy. Me and Jim just fucking deadpanned Dice lines and bombed, and Dice is in the back laughing. And I have that audio cassette. Or here's one of the lines. And I don't even remember the context of these. Again, this is 1997, so Jim and I knew the context of them. So these were just quick notes. One of them was, the line was, hot shit in the chamber. That was like a fucking Dice line. And, here's what it is. Say at the top it says, say, make love, and I underlined it. And that means things you say when you make love. And one of them is, oh, hurry up, I got a hot shit in the chamber. And one of them was, I put a dash, one of them was, oh, the roast beef was so good in those fucking mashed potatoes. So me and Jim went up and did these horrendous lines. Every one of them bombed. Dice loved that we knew them. And then afterwards, we got pictures. And I'm sorry if this story is too long. So
no, it's fucking great.
So the next, we said goodbye to Dice. And that was the end of it. We met him. We got photos. I have that photo from that night, too. And we wound up going and taping the Louis Anderson show the next day. And a comedian named Patty Ross, a really funny Boston comedian, she was the warm-up comedian for Louis Anderson's show. So me and Jim were on fucking cloud nine. We had met Dice, and we told Patty, we're like, yeah, we met fucking Dice. We loved him. It was so great. And she goes, Andrew's my best fucking friend. And we're like, get the fuck out of here. And she's like, no, he's my friend. So the next day we tape Louis Anderson. It's a great night. We're in the hotel room, and the phone rings. And it's fucking, I pick up the phone, and I think Lenny Mark is like, it's for you. And he goes, hey, Norton, this is Dice. And I'm like, fuck you. This is like boss. I thought it was some other dumb friend of mine. And it was fucking Dice. Patty Ross gave him our number and hotel because he liked me and Jim. So he goes, you guys want to come shopping with me? So he fucking comes to the hotel, and he picks up me and Florentine. We go down there with Lenny. And we go, can our friend come? And Dice goes, no. So we told Lenny, go fuck yourself. Lenny goes back upstairs. And Lenny took it in good stride. And then me and Florentine went furniture shopping with Dice and spent the day with him. He took us for a Slurpee. And it was really weird. I remember we were in this one store, and there was an older woman, and she had some like little old man husband. And she recognized Dice. So she was changing, and it was one of those stores where in the back of the store, there's like a little area with a fucking curtain, and she was like smiling at us because we were with Andrew, and she was like showing us her tits and her ass, and she didn't want her husband to see, but she was flashing us because Dice was with us. And it was like one of those days where everything was just fucking, we went into Dice, I think he bought lawn furniture. And it was so bizarre that we're out with Dice, and we think we're going to be fucking a bunch of girls, but we're like a bunch of idiots with Slurpees. I think he was begging for free shit in a store. There's nothing Dice loves more than free shit. So I think he took me and Jim out, and he was begging for free shit in some store. And as we're talking, I just found a photo of myself on stage, which I think Jim took, just bombing horribly. It might not have been from the same night, but for some reason I think it was. And he's dropping us off at the hotel at the end of the night, and he goes, and again, I don't think we had cell phones back then because I had a business card with my home phone on it. I'm like, I got a card, and guys goes, give me your card. So I gave him my card, and Jim didn't have a card, and that was it. And we're like, well, we'll probably never talk to Dice again. And I guess a month later, or 2 months later, whatever it was, I got a message from him, which I still have somewhere. I saved it. And I was like, Norton, this is Dice. I started my new show today. And it was when he started filming hits, if I remember correctly. So that's kind of the story of how it happened. And Dice changed my life. I'm very, very loyal to Dice because that going on the road with him led me to Opie and Anthony, and that led me to so much. I love fucking Dice Clay. He truly changed my life.
Tell me how he brought you on Opie and Anthony. I'm kind of unclear. I know he was the guy, but he just brought you into morning radio one day?
Well, no, Dice was always really fucking good about making sure that people knew who I was. Like, Dice loved me, and the shows, I would always do well in front of him. And we weren't doing arenas. We were doing like 3,000 to 5,000 people, which were massive gigs. But I remember it wasn't like it was after he had done like Madison Square Garden the first time, so he was doing probably 4, 3,000 seats. He was doing good-sized theaters. Like, he was still selling a tremendous amount of tickets. And so everywhere we went, like, he brought me on a Man Cow. I was on Man Cow, who became a big enemy of Opie and Anthony long before I knew who Opie and Anthony were.
In Chicago.
Yeah, Man Cow. We did the Rosemont Theater 2 nights in a row. 4,000 people a night. And, Dice brought me on Chicago TV. And Dice was so weird. Like, because he had, the Dice image, but it was me, Dice, Club Soda Kenny, and Happy Face. I believe we were all laying in a bed under the covers while Dice did this morning radio show interview. It was so weird. It was like this weirdly homoerotic thing. We're all under the covers. He just did bizarre shit like this. So Kenny tells me there's these fucking jerk-offs, Opie and Anthony, and the guy Anthony makes fun of Dice. I'm like, fuck them. Who are these pieces of shit? So they were on WNEW in the afternoon, and we listened to it, and Anthony was doing a very funny Dice impression. And then I heard Anthony doing, like, Mike Tyson, and he did a fucking hilarious bit on Mike Tyson. And both of those guys, the show was just a funny show. So it was hard for me not to like those guys. But Dice went in one day to promote a gig we were doing, and it might have been the Beacon. I don't remember the gig that we were promoting, but he called me at home. I was living with Jim at the time. So I went on the radio, and Dice was like, Norton, tell him how you like being peed on. So I just told these fucking... And Opie and Anthony were nicer to me than they should have been. Like, back then, they were still afraid of Dice. And this was, they weren't on anywhere else. It was only New York radio. They were not syndicated. So they brought me on the phone, and I did okay. They kind of laughed politely because they loved Andrew so much. And then one time he went in studio, and he brought me in. And I remember Chris Jericho was promoting Fozzy, and there was a woman, I forget the guy's name, but Frantic Fran was an older woman. And I had a gig in Rascals in New Jersey, if I remember correctly. And I was like, nah, I went in with Dice, and for the first, 3 hours of the show, I didn't say much. And I was supposed to leave to go do the gig. But I believe I canceled it last minute. I was like, you asshole, this is New York radio, and you're with Andrew Dice Clay. What the fuck are you doing a one-nighter? Fuck this. Dude, stay on the radio. So I stayed on the radio, and the last hour I was very funny. And that, I legitimately did well. I always liked myself for making that decision. I was like, you know what? I didn't grab the money. I saw the big picture. And I went in a bunch of times. I was a New York guy, so those guys liked me. I was a Jersey guy, but I was right there. They would always call me in when something weird was happening. I remember there was one girl who was so crazy, and they're like, Jim Norton, if you're listening right now, call the studio. You got to call in. We have this fucking crazy girl we want you to meet. It was live on the radio, so I actually went in and met her, and I wound up dating her for 9 months.
Oh, Jesus.
I fell in love with her. She was my girlfriend on 9/11. That's the girl I was dating on 9/11. She was at my house with Florentine on September 11th. That's my reference point for how long ago that was.
Wow.
And so I guess that was early, very, very early 2001 they made that call. And eventually I got arrested for the show and with the famous voyeur bus thing. And Opie goes, Jim, I want to get you paid, but whenever you want to come in, you have carte blanche to come on the show. So it's ironic that me and Opie had a big falling out because me and him were the close ones. Me and Anthony always liked each other, but we were never close in the beginning. We were never friends in the beginning. We just liked each other from the radio show. But that's how I started getting paid, man. And it was all because of Dice, and then eventually Opie is the one who got me the money.
How'd you cope with losing NEW during that time? Was it 2002?
It was August of 2002. And I remember the phone call from Bob Eatman. I was with Opie and I was with Anthony, and we were in front of a Starbucks on the Upper West Side. And Opie got the call, and he was relaying the message to me and Anthony. He was, they're canceling the show, or whatever. Yeah, we're fired. And I remember we went to Opie's place and sat there. And I remember I was living in Bob Kelly's building, and I lived on the 22nd floor. And I remember seriously contemplating suicide. I'm I'm going to jump out the window. I'm like, it was almost like I was fucking making no money. I had paid a $300 rent with Florentine. We split $900. Me, him, and his girlfriend split $900 rent, $300 apiece. And I finally got money, and I finally had an audience that I was drawing, and people finally liked me. I moved into New York. I went from a $300 rent to a $2,200 a month rent. I had a fucking 2-year lease. 5 months into a 2-year lease, we get canned, and I was like, my life is over, and I was just gonna jump out the window. I'm never gonna pick up steam again. I fucking suck. My life fucking sucks. So that was how I coped with it. But literally, we got fucking dumped in August of 2002. November of 2002, Colin said, hey, we're going to do this show. We want you to start writing on it. And it was Tough Crowd. So I jumped from Opie and Anthony's coattails onto Colin's coattails. And then fucking Tough Crowd. Opie and Anthony came back on the air in October of 2004. Tough Crowd ended November of 2004. So as much as that was a really painful 26 months that we were off the radio, it was an extremely valuable thing because it made me a better comedian because I had to write. You know, you had to write jokes on Tough Crowd, man, because you had Geraldo, you had Patrice, you had fucking Nick DiPaolo, Keith, Colin, all these ferociously funny, mean guys. And if you were, you know, were weak, you were going to get trounced. So it made me a much fucking stronger comedian as opposed to just having one good hour. I would have had one good hour and made a CD and probably still, 19 years later, still been touring on that fucking hour. So it was a blessing in hindsight, Well,
it's also a good message for younger comics out, right? Where none of us are working, and that just goes to show your perseverance. You don't know what's around the corner. You have no idea what's going to happen. And your whole career has been like, okay, look what happened around the corner. Like if you just stick to it and keep going forward, you don't know what's going to happen.
100%, man. You can't. We all want to quit sometimes, but it's like every time something happens, you really can make it into something better. Every time I've hit a brick wall in my career, which everyone hits sometimes, something better comes of it. I mean, you look at Bill Burr getting booed in fucking in Philadelphia. That was at it was an Opie and Anthony show. A lot of those fans didn't know Bill because we had just gone back onto terrestrial radio there. I think it was 2007 or 8. And then that video kind of went viral for Bill, and a lot of people began to know who he was for real and see how brilliant he is and how fearless he is. So no matter how shitty something is, it can turn around for you and be really, really good. And I remember, it's funny, I remember Bill was doing Cleveland with us, and they booed him again. Because he had said, if they boo me, I'm going to fucking quit this tour. And I remember being in his hotel room, and he was so freaked out that they had booed him again. But literally, it wasn't because they didn't love him. It was because they admired what he had done so much that they wanted to recreate a moment, like with their city. Like, because he was so goddamn funny, smashing Philadelphia. They wanted to recreate that, But he thought it was because they hated him. But it was like, no, dude, you did something amazing. They're trying to recreate it, and they're just too fucking, they're all just drunk, so they don't realize the comedy doesn't work that way.
I was thinking about this today. The Opie and Anthony show, that show in particular, honestly is the reason there is a boom in comedy for all those amazing comics that come out, like Rogan, Burr, Patrice. I mean, the list goes on. Colin. And then you got to think about it. You guys kind of invented podcasting too. So not only some of the greatest comics in the world coming from your show, but that format and that style is what we're all doing now.
Yeah, the long form. Like Stern was always really good. Like he had comedians on, but I think he was a bit more segmented. Opie and Anthony were really just come on, hang out for as long as you want, be a part of the conversation. They were very, very good to comedians. Rogan credits Anthony. I mean, the reality is Anthony had that, because Anthony's such a fucking, a bunker-driven lunatic. He had that place in his house, and he made, he opened up the compound, and Joe thought that looked really fun. And it's funny, man, Mark Maron in the early days used to use one of our studios to record his podcast in. Like, Maron would come on our show all the time, and I think he was just looking for something new, and I remember him using our studio. I think O&A were influential in that style, but those guys were really, really good to comedians. And that started at NEW. It was just a long-form conversation with they didn't want you doing bits. They didn't want you doing stuff like that. It was an amazing place for comedians.
But not only you have those big comedians that come out of there, but you guys pretty much gave birth to a whole. I'm one of your babies. Like I was on the other side of the radio in college listening to you guys, so you gave birth to so many people like me that wanted to do this thing. I was like, I want to be a comedian on the radio. I want to be like Jim Norton. I want to be like Artie. And that's all I wanted. And it was the first time in my life I was like, I know what I want to do.
Oh, thanks, man. Thank you. That means a lot. I love hearing that. It's funny. That's a sign of getting old, too, is that you have all these young guys who become legit comics, and they say stuff like that, and it's like, wow, man, it makes me feel really good. And, you've been around for a while, and you have a legitimate career. So it's always appreciated. And, guys like yourself and guys like Seton Smith I'm friends with, who started in car crash comedy. When I see all these guys who are successful comedians and they say that, it feels really good. And it's always good to know that comedians had at least some respect for what we did, And you also got me laid twice. I don't think you realize this. I did not. That's about as many times as I got myself laid. So we're fucking even. You filmed your special in Cleveland one year. I think it was 2011, was it? 2012. That was Please Be Offended. Yeah, and I went to it. I remember my station kind of sponsored it, and I met a girl there that night. And awesome. I ended up hooking up with her that night. We got a hotel room. It was because we went to your special. And then you guys came back for a broadcast. It was like down on West 6. I remember you were throwing cherries at some girl's ass. That's all I remember. Really? We used to do cherry darts a lot. And by the way, in Cleveland, that was the Ohio Theater. I look at that special now. I had fucking acid wash jeans on and fucking, I look like such a fucking fatso. Like I really look like Uncle Fester. I hate that special. But I love the crowd that night. But I remember the Ohio Theater. What's funny? That weekend when we landed to do that, that famous Chip video? It was still an older version of Chip. Wait, yeah, cancer. Like it was that video. Yeah. Which has gone viral twice. Now, on TikTok, it just got like 3 million views. Somebody put it up. And it got onto World Star Hip Hop and got a couple million views. Well, Anthony shot that. It was me, Anthony, Club Soda Kenny. I don't know if the whole crew was with us. If it was just, I think there was always 2 vans. And we were in the one van. And that was on the way to the hotel from the airport. That's when that video was shot, when I was going to shoot Please Be Offended. Oh, my God. That's hilarious. Cleveland. Yeah. It all ties in nicely with Cleveland. Such a good city. I don't want to keep you all this, but I do have to ask you, man, like, what was the experience like being in a Martin Scorsese film? I mean, I went to the movie theater in L.A. to see that because I was like, I got to see a Scorsese film in L.A. And I'm sitting there, and I see 2 guys I know, a guy I used to open for, Sebastian Maniscalco. Yep. And you guys are in this. I'm like, this is fucking. I was so happy for both of you. I mean, this is like the pinnacle of, I did it, Mom. Look at me. I'm in a fucking Scorsese film. Pacino's, they're watching me right now. De Niro, Pesci. Yeah, it's weird. It felt. I've told people too. The truth of the matter, I was so happy just to make the cut. Like I really like. When I knew it was a long film, and I'm like, I hope I don't get chopped out of it. And thank God that they fucking killed Joe Gallo that night because they kind of had to leave it in. The little moment he had with Buffalino made sense in the context of a comedy club and what had happened at the Rickles show. So the fact that I made it in was fucking amazing. And, I almost didn't get to the premiere. But, we finally, like the night before, found out I was going to get to go to the premiere. And, it's just one of those nights where it all worked out. I took stupid Sam as my date. That was my fucking date. Sam Roberts. You could have impressed some girl being in a Scorsese film. You took Sam Roberts. Dude, I could have got blown after that. I could have brought a girl. I bring fucking Sam Roberts. What a shit move. I really am dumb. Did your mom get to see that film? Did she get to see you in the movie? Yeah, I think they did. Yeah, my parents have always been really supportive. Like, I'm really lucky. A lot of guys have parents that kind of shit on what they do or don't encourage them. I'm really lucky. My mother and father and my sister and my whole family has been incredible. So, yeah, they did. And, my mother was so happy I made it in. So, yeah, I was happy. It was an amazing experience. I mean, guys on that level can be dicks and they're not. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they can be complete dicks. And a Scorsese set, everybody was nice because he's nice. And everybody was in a good mood because he was in a good mood.
Wow, so it just trickles down to everyone.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow,
You
look,
can't be a dick because he's great.
you know, if there's a comedy hall of fame, you're a first ballot guy. You're one of the guys on Mount Rushmore. And Jim, I can't thank you enough for doing this.
Oh, thanks, Chad. I'm happy to do it, and congrats on 200 episodes, man.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, and before I hang up the phone, how cool is it to have Ozzy Osbourne as a friend?
Dude, it's insane. It's fucking insane that I was in L.A. one time, and I texted him, and he texted me back, and he asked where I was, and he told me just to come over, and he'd play the album for me, and he did. And me and him just sat in a room and listened to his new album. And then he called Sharon on FaceTime, and he held the phone up, and she's like, "Hello, Jim." And it was so bizarre. Like, I'm not an interloper here. I'm an invited guest. You know, usually I would have figured I would be there with somebody else, like the extra fucking barnacle on the side that's annoying everybody. But, you know, it was amazing. It's kind of surreal, actually.
Jim, I'm glad you didn't jump out that window after
Me
NEW.
too. Me too, man. Thanks, buddy.
Hey, thank you. Jim Norton, everybody. Jim, thanks again.
Anytime, Chad. Good talking to you.
All right, bye-bye.
All right, pal.
Bunch of bullshit. 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 Bunch of bullshit.
Sit down, Zumock.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you requested him. Every time I say, who do you want to hear on the podcast, his name appears. And I said, who do you want to hear on the 200th episode? And sure enough, Dan Soder joins us right now from New York City. Dan, thank you so much.
Yeah, dude, thanks for having me on, man. How you doing?
I'm really excited to have you on. And the one question I've always wanted to ask you, did Lex Luger have a hand in killing Miss Elizabeth?
Oh, I don't think so, man. I don't think so because, like, have you watched that Dark Side of the Ring?
I heard about it.
No, you got to watch it, dude. If you still have that theory, you got to hold that. You got to watch that whole Dark Side of the Ring about Macho Man and Elizabeth. I think it was just they were partying and she OD'd. I think. I don't think it was like Lex Luger killed her. I think they were just like hanging out partying, and then shit went bad.
And shit just got away from him.
Yeah, because like in the interview and stuff, I think they interview him in Dark Side of the Ring, but they talk about it. It doesn't seem like anything like evil or nefarious. I think it was just like she OD'd.
Wow, I got to check that out. That's also the one with Chris Benoit, right?
Yeah, Dark Side of the Ring this season 2 they covered Chris Benoit, but it's a great show on Vice.
Yeah. How long was Miss Elizabeth and Macho Man married technically?
Oh, I don't know. I know they were married before they got married at SummerSlam. I know they had been married years before that.
Have you ever done a deep dive into all the wrestlers that died?
Oh, I mean, there's a great book called The Squared Circle by David Shoemaker, and he goes through the history of pro wrestling, and then every other chapter is a story about a pro wrestler that died early, and it's really an interesting book. So I recommend people reading that if they want to read those kind of stories.
No, I definitely want to check that out because all my heroes, Mr. Perfect, Hawk from the Road Warriors, they're all dead.
Oh, yeah, dude. Hawk was the fucking man, and Mr. Perfect. And, yeah, those guys I think both of them are in the Squared Circle, the book.
They always talk about the legendary Road Warriors pop. They said it was the hugest ovation in wrestling history.
Yeah, I think it's a mixture of, like, I heard that, like, the Road Warriors pop was the biggest pop, and then, like, Hogan late 80s was, like, the second biggest pop.
Is that like, towards WrestleMania 3?
Yeah, I'd probably say, like, 88, 87, 88, I heard is, like, the biggest Hogan pop, especially when they started playing, like, because Road Warriors used to come out to Ozzy Osbourne's
Iron Man in NWA.
Yeah, and then Hogan came out, you know, he was, like, one of the first people with an original song. And, I mean, I remember being a little kid and hearing the opening of that fucking song and going bananas.
Oh, it was amazing. I still listen to that song. I have it on my iPad. I still rock out.
That's hilarious. Yeah, but I just remember that kicking on and being, like, ready to run through the wall at 6 years old.
What are the greatest wrestling themes? By the way, I'm torturing the audience right now because they probably want to hear about the Bonfire. They probably want to hear about Son of Gary. But I'm just like, nah, fuck it. I'm talking wrestling.
Yeah, dude, let's get into it. I'm always down to talk wrestling.
But what's the best?
I'm wearing a Harley Race T-shirt. I'm ready to go.
Oh, that's awesome. Is Harley Race still alive?
No, he died about 10 years ago, I want to say, or around, maybe less.
All right. But what are some of the best wrestling theme entrance songs?
I mean, I would easily, my top three would, I mean, Macho Man used Pomp and Circumstance, so I don't really know if you can say that's an original song, but Hogan's, Warriors, I liked Legion of Dooms after the Road Warriors became Legion of Doom.
The What a Rush?
Yeah, and then just the fucking shred, the guitar shred.
Yeah,
that was badass. But I also think Stone Cold's glass breaking.
I almost did Stone Cold Steve Austin's podcast, so I did a deep dive on all his entrances. They're fucking amazing.
Yeah, dude, he had the best one. I mean, I love the Rock song, but I think Stone Cold's entrance song is one of my favorites of all time.
If you ever get a chance, you might have already seen it. Did you ever see the one where he drives a beer truck out to the ring?
Yeah, of course.
And he sprays down like the Rock. It's the funniest thing I've ever seen to this day.
If there's been anything I've done in quarantine, it's watched a little bit of some old wrestling. I've been putting it on. I watched it to get hyped for WrestleMania, and then, just got the WWE network, so you just put it on whenever.
So I watched your Showtime special, Son of Gary.
HBO, bud.
HBO, in the cool, like the old school intro.
Yeah, dude. We got the 1984 intro.
That was the coolest part of it. I was like, that's fucking smart.
Yeah, well, Drew Michael had used the back half on his special a year before, and then I asked HBO when I got my special, I'm like, hey, I saw that. Can I get the full one? And they were like, yeah, if you want it. So I was like, yeah, it's fucking, absolutely, let's do that. I
thought it was going to go into First and 10 or Arliss after I saw that intro.
Yeah, I was waiting for, when I watched it, like, my girlfriend and I were at home, and we were like, oh, I just want to see it go from a movie into my special. I didn't want to, like, watch my special. But I wanted to see it go in, and I felt like I was about to watch The Karate Kid on HBO.
In that small Jersey town, they're loading up the station wagon heading west.
Yeah, I was waiting for that. I was waiting for them and their family waving goodbye.
Well, And the reason why I bring up your special, obviously, by the way, your career is designed for quarantine. You can watch the special on HBO. You can watch him on Billions on Showtime. You can listen to him on Bonfire with Big J on Comedy Central. Like, if you're in your house, you could just take in Dan Soder.
Yeah, dude. If you don't know me, you can get to know me pretty well during this quarantine. But yeah, we're really lucky to, I think anyone with podcasts and radio shows are real lucky to be able to still be able to create stuff during this time.
Yeah, definitely. We're all doubling down. I had your roommate on this week, Mike Vecchione.
One of the best of all time. And I'm staying with my girlfriend, and he's staying at our place with his girlfriend. So for the first time in 9 years, we're spending more than a month apart.
I was disappointed to hear that. I like to picture you guys together in quarantine.
Yeah, I think if we were both single, it wouldn't have been as bad. I feel bad for some of my single friends that are just stuck home alone. But, I think had I been single during this quarantine, it would probably just be Vecchione and I'd be learning how to do random workouts in my apartment right now, as opposed to just enjoying the company of my girlfriend.
Did you see that body in Eliza's video?
Oh, yeah. I see that. I saw that body every morning going to the shower. I knew what he was hiding under those shirts.
I've never seen chiseled fat before. It's amazing.
Yeah, he's got WCW wrestler body from like the 90s.
He should be tag teaming with Tom Zank.
Yeah, dude. If you put him in in a singlet, like a strap thing, he'd look great. Vecchione would be ready for the big time. Vecchione
and Paul Roma tag team.
I would love to see that. I would love to see two fucking strong men beat up people.
But going back to what I was saying, your Showtime, your HBO special, you come out to your pop was Queens of the Stone Age, right?
Yeah, well, I didn't come out to anything. I came out to Big J introducing me, and then at the end of the special, we were lucky enough to get Queens of the Stone Age in the Fade, which is my favorite song of theirs. So that was pretty fucking awesome.
How do you clear that with the band? Do they know who you are? Do you have to pay for it?
Yeah, I think you actually clear it more with the record label and the people that own the rights to the songs, because I've been trying to get Queens of the Stone Age I tried to get them for my hour special on Comedy Central, but it cost too much. And then I tried to get them for my Netflix half hour and I thought we were approved. And then when the special came out, Netflix switched it from Queens of the Stone Age to T-Rex, which I wasn't mad about. But then HBO, it's HBO, so they made sure they got the song. And originally we wanted to end the special with Jimmy Buffett's Margaritaville.
Oh yeah, because your dad.
Yeah, because my dad was a big Buffett fan, and they were like, "There's no way we're going to clear that, and that costs way too much money."
Did you ever meet Josh Homme? Does he know who you are?
I don't think so, but I'm okay with that. I think we live in this age right now where everyone wants to meet everybody, and I don't think that's necessarily a great idea. I think if it's a natural thing and I were to ever meet him, at Sirius or something, I probably wouldn't make too big of a deal about it because I'm such a big fan. I'd probably just want to shake his hand and get a picture. But, yeah, he's definitely my favorite musician of all time.
You want to geek out over him? I mean, I geek out over all my heroes.
Yeah, dude. I mean, I would have a moment where I take a picture and then walk away and play it cool and then geek out, just because I don't want to just talk about shit that he's done in a creepy way, because I could obviously do a deep dive and be like, and then you did this album, and when you worked with Arctic Monkeys on AM, I loved the song Knee Socks, and he'd be like, okay, all right, you're freaking me out.
Yeah, when you wrote New Fang with Them Crooked Vultures, what were you thinking?
Yeah, I know John Paul Jones did the arrangement, and you were on vocals, and Dave was on drums, but do you ever feel like maybe you could have helped with the arrangements like you do in the Desert Sessions? And it's like, all right, guy, this guy's a fucking weirdo.
That's totally what I would do. I would totally do.
It's like when you're a major fan of someone, you can ask these questions that I think would be like, all right, dude, I don't know you well enough to answer that. If you're like, what's going on with Nick Oliveri? Are you guys cool? Do you think he could ever join you on stage to do Millionaire live? And you're like, I don't know, guy. Fucking leave me alone.
Is John Theodore the best drummer you've ever played with?
Man, John Theodore fucking slaps. That guy is so awesome.
If you're in quarantine going through a deep dive, go watch him perform with Zach De La Rocha. They had a band. I forgot the name of it.
Well, he was in Mars Volta, and some of their songs are just so crazy elaborate on the drums. It's awesome.
I mean, he puts on a spectacle. It's like a show.
Yeah, it was. I got to see Queens of the Stone Age in Sweden at this amusement park called Grüne Lund, and he did a drum solo that I was like, this is fucking unbelievable.
It's called One Day Is Lying. Go watch some of the live clips. It's unbelievable. It's with Zach De La Rocha from Rage Against the Machine, and these live performances are just amazing. I was blown away by him.
It's pretty great to see. I loved Vinny Castillo, who was with Queens of the Stone Age for a while, and obviously Dave Grohl, but it's been really cool to see a guy like John Theodore be able to come in and be able to play some of the Grohl fills that he did on Clockwork or Songs for the Deaf, and then also kind of add his own twist to it. So that's been pretty badass.
That is pretty cool. And I'm going through your Wikipedia. You can also watch your stand-ups from 2017 on Netflix.
Yeah, why don't you go watch HBO? It's like, why don't you skip over that one?
Yeah, is it one of those where you're just not happy? You're just like, it's...
Yeah, I just didn't like it. I didn't like the way it came out. I didn't like we did 2 tapings, and I liked the first audience, and Netflix wanted to use the second one. And it was I just didn't feel like, I still get tweets where people are like, that audience sucked. And you're like, no, it was Fortune Feinster's audience, and I went on after her. And so they really weren't there for me. And I don't think anyone wants to have a special where you're taped winning over the crowd.
Yeah, that's...
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The HBO special was my crowd, and the Comedy Central not special, that was my crowd. But the Netflix special, I felt like it was I was doing a guest set after the headliner.
We're going to put you on after Dave Attell. Was that cool?
Yeah. They go, so we're going to have Bill Burr do an hour, and then we just want you to come in and do some silly voices and bland observations.
I got to ask you that because when I was putting together the 200th episode, I took the top 5 people everybody wanted to hear, and I got them all. I got Norton, I got Bennington, I got you, Florentine, and the joyful Kevin Brennan.
Oh man, dude, one of my top 4 Brennans.
It goes Danny.
It always does. I said that to him at the cellar, and he's like, "How do you know that?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I just know to say that to you, and it'll work." Yeah, Kevin Brennan's probably one of my favorite curmudgeons on planet Earth. He's fucking hilarious, and I always like a guy that I kind of want to fight every time I see him.
I always judge a comic on what Kevin thinks, and the fact that he says good things about you, I'm like, all right, well, Dan's a good guy.
Well, I like that because he doesn't say that to my face, and so that means that I do like Kevin. Because whenever I see him, he's just talking shit, and that usually is how he operates. But Jim Norton, Bennington. You got a good group. I feel honored to be among that with Florentine. Florentine's the fucking man.
No, I was really excited that everyone agreed to do it, and the fact that I got you're the last of the Mohicans. You're the last one on the tape, but it comes out on Tuesday.
Nice.
And I cannot thank you enough for just doing this.
Yeah, of course, man. Of course. I'm glad we can make it work out, and quarantine times, man. This is a fucking weird time, so it's nice to talk to people.
Yeah, definitely. So, what do you? Before I let you go, I always hate talking about it because I want people to forget about it. But our profession, how's this gonna go? Like, how do you see this playing out?
Dude, I honestly, man, Chad, it's weird you say that because I have been thinking about that all morning, and it's like I just realized I haven't done stand up for a month. My last show was March 14th at the DC Improv, and I realized we probably won't be on stage, best case scenario, till the end of June.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, and then you think, I bet the road doesn't happen until 2021.
Wow. Well, I know I talked to some friends in Omaha at the Omaha Funny Bone. They said they're starting to open businesses out there, like a slow roll in some states.
Oh, man, it's going to be so funny to see cities that, we always used to shit on for having to go to perform, being destination spots where we're like, dude, it's gonna be like me running into the bedroom telling my girlfriend I'm working in Erie, Pennsylvania. They did it.
I'm at Junior's.
Yeah, I was gonna say Junior's Last Laugh. They booked me. I got a feature, but it's okay.
Holy shit, I'm MCing at Hyenas.
Yeah, dude, you're just fucking please. All right, fucking Captain Brian is gonna open it up.
I know. I got to guess at it off the hook in Napa.
It really is humbling. I think it's humbling for every comedian to be like. And what was funny is I found it I don't know, ironic or just maybe a sick joke by the universe, but I've always half sold all my shows, and then finally the HBO special comes out, and I had about 6 weeks of selling out shows, and then everyone's like, "Go inside," and you're like, "No, it just got good."
Yeah, Mark Norman had the same thing. He started selling tickets, and now it's go sit down.
Yeah, go sit down. Go sit down and hope that the people remember it. And you're like, fuck.
Well, I think the good thing that you have going for you, like I said earlier, you have all this stuff out there that people are watching, so you're going to be relevant, and you'll be able to sell tickets once it's all said and done.
Well, I hope so. Thank you for the positivity.
Then again, you might be hosting for Adam Sandler at the Houston Improv, but...
That would be pretty badass, dude, because everyone just gets bumped down 2 notches, and I wouldn't mind MCing for Norm or Sandler.
Oh, in a second. I love those stories. Just, I will, any of my heroes, I'll do anything. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Dan Soder, everybody, and everybody can follow him on Twitter. You're not much of a tweeter guy, but you're on Instagram.
Nah, yeah, I'm on Instagram and Twitter. I got posts that come out and shit, so... Who knows? But, dude, I appreciate the talk, and congratulations on the 200th episode.
Thank you. I hope to talk to you in person someday.
Yeah, let's get back to that old face-to-face talks.
One day I'll give you a handshake.
Yeah, weird. I don't know. That still might be too much.
All right, brother. Dan Soder, everybody. Thank you. All right, that was Dan Soder here on the Lost and Ship Dip. Do I deliver? Do I fucking deliver? You wanted Soder, you got him. Like Kiss, you wanted the best, you got him. You got the best. That was fun. Speaking of Jim Florentine, the great Jim Florentine, I think he's been on my podcast. It's between Godfrey and Florentine, who's been on the podcast more than anyone. But it's probably Jim. I think Jim was one of the first. They're neck and neck. But I can't imagine doing a 200th episode without the great Jim Florentine. So let's go to him right now.
You could see through all of this fucking bullshit. You're not breaking any new ground by posting a picture of your fucking grilled chicken breast. I don't like it. At all. And it just fucking irks the shit out of me. Oh. Do you realize that if you're not on any social media for like a week, nobody, and I mean nobody, will give a fuck. Ugh. Like I said before, I don't want to fucking tap my foot when I'm buying a pair of fucking pants. You motherfucker. Ugh. It's not life or death, it's lunch or dinner. Remember that. God damn it. How fucking aggravating. Oh, I remember this one, do you? Good for you. Nobody gives a shit. Ooh. Whoa.
All right.
Yeah.
Like I said, talking to Dan Soder. Dan Soder said he was awesome. We have Jim Florentine on the 200th episode. Jim, how are you?
I'm good. Is that what Dan said?
Yeah, he goes, Jim Florentine's awesome. I quote.
All right, I'll watch his special then. No, Dan, I love Dan.
Yeah, and Jim Norton at the top of the episode had a lot of nice things to say about you, too.
Look, these are guys, the New York guys. We all hang out. We get it. We're all in the same game. We're just, we're all just fucking fighting our way every day. So, that's good. That's good to hear. But, yeah, we're all just, I don't know. I just, they're New Yorkers. They, and, we all stick together.
What's it like to have people say nice things about you? I'm curious from my point of view.
I don't know. My motto has always been try not to be a dick. Like, if you're not a dick to people, you'll probably get pretty far into business. Eventually, things will land your way if you hang in there long enough and are not a dick to people.
I'm going to write that down, see if it's too late to take that advice.
Probably. But, yeah, you just got to, I remember being a dick to this one feature act, and I wound up apologizing to him a couple months later because I was going through some shit at the time, some relationship problems, but I really snapped on him.
Yeah, I've done that before, and I've gone back and apologized. I understand. Because, it's just fucking grind. You deal with personal shit, and it just gets ridiculous sometimes.
Yeah, I remember the guy was like, give me a fist pump before I went up, like he was featured and I was headlining, and that just really annoyed me.
Yeah, well, get used to it, by the way. I mean,
well, no, you don't have to do anything.
Like no contact whatsoever.
Yeah, you just say, great job, thanks, man, crowd's great. All of that. I don't shake hands with any of the acts during a show. Sometimes when you go up on stage, you have to. But yeah, we'll have to worry,
Yeah.
We'll have to figure that out. But I just remember that. I just remember that annoying me. And then I don't know what the fuck he was doing the rest of the week. And I snapped on him. And then I wound up telling him. But anyway, I was a dick at that point.
I listen to your podcast every week. Everyone's Awful on Barstool Sports. And I find it hard for you to be annoyed.
Look, I can turn it on and turn it off really quick. Like, I've always had that ability. Like, if someone cuts me off on the road, I don't follow the guy for 5 miles trying to get revenge. I've never been. I'm like, I might for like 30 seconds be pissed off, or maybe try to cut him off, and then that's it. And then I let it go. I don't give a fuck.
You see, I'm the opposite. I've actually followed the guy to the gas station, and I stood behind him, and him just looking at me with this look like he wanted to do something, and I got so much joy from that.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I just I don't hold it that long. I just figured. And plus, you never know if the guy's got a gun, he's got a baseball bat, a road rage thing where you get killed. I'm like, is it really worth it? Because the guy fucking cut in front of me. Who cares?
I guess I'm just looking for the story. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. So, but yeah, with the podcast though, people will send me stuff. People bragging on Facebook or making up stories that didn't happen. They fed a homeless person with their last, few dollars that they had. And then, instead of eating lunch that day, they gave it to a homeless guy outside. Just lies.
You don't like that?
Attention. No, well, no, I don't. It's not that I don't like it. It's a lie. So I just call them out on it.
So when they're putting on Facebook, like, I only had $4 to my name, but this guy looked hungry, so I just gave him the $4. You think they're lying?
Or, one was a guy, he just ordered his lunch, and he was ready to sit down, and he saw a homeless guy out front, and it was the last money he had, and he wound up giving his lunch to the homeless guy, and he went back to work.
That's a lie?
And then there's other ones about how you pay for somebody in front of you. That's a big one now. Some struggling mother that doesn't have enough money at the register when she goes to get her shit rung up. And she's like, oh, my God, her credit card gets denied, or she's short on cash and she doesn't have or they don't take a check, or whatever the fuck it is, some guy always comes to the rescue behind her and pays the rest of it. Lie. And then helps her out with her packages to her car, and, you know, it follows her home and puts them away for her. You know what I mean? It's like it's such a lie, and you just want to fucking pat on the back. You just want everybody to go, oh, my God, you're amazing. There should be more people like you. Hashtag pay it forward. Fuck you. You lying piece of shit. You know what I mean? Get enough attention from whoever you live with. You don't need it from strangers on Facebook. It's a fucking lie, and you know it. That never happened. I fed homeless people before. Like, I got an extra sandwich. I see guys outside in the Port Authority. Here, man, you want this? Thanks. And that's it. I don't write about it. I don't say, you know, I gave my last meal. None of that shit. And you don't have to put it out. Yeah, I fed a homeless guy. Yeah, everybody knows. You know, if you got extra money or whatever, if you feel like doing it, give something to home. You don't have to put it on Facebook that you did it. Everybody knows that they're struggling. These people laying on the street. And if you want to give them money or you feel safe, give them money or give them food. Everybody knows that.
What if people just want to put that out there, encouraging people to do the same?
Like I said, everybody knows. You don't have to encourage them. You see, you make that decision. Do you want to do it or not? Is this guy annoying? Or am I not giving him money because he's going to use it on drugs or alcohol? Whatever the fuck it is. We already know how to do that. We already know how to help an old lady across the street. We already know how to fucking help a struggling, you know, old lady fucking putting packages in her car. We know how to do that.
So you don't...
putting it on Facebook is not going to make me start driving around and look for old fucking people in a parking lot. You know what I mean? To go help her with a package.
So you don't think it's like a feel-good story? You don't follow, like, you like it?
No, it's not that. And then, you know, everyone putting these inspirational quotes on their Instagram. Okay, how come everyone's not doing better? They're not. And the people that put them, I know them, and their lives are a train wreck. So they're not listening to that either. We really should be doing better as a whole, as a society, with all these inspirational quotes every day that everyone's posting, you know?
So you're not in a situation where you're in a bad mood and you kind of look at your Instagram and you see one of those quotes and you kind of turn it around. It never works.
What do you mean? Like
you're in a bad mood. Say, I don't know, something happened that day and you just look on your phone and you see an inspirational quote. It doesn't change your mood.
No. And it doesn't make me, because there's a sign in the gym, train harder is not going to make me stay an extra half hour because I saw that hanging in there. I know when to stop training, when I'm fucking exhausted and I want to go.
Well, some people will like follow The Rock on Instagram for inspiration. You don't do that?
Yeah, well, how are they doing? How are they doing? A guy who's fucking pumped with steroids. Wow, what a shock. That the guy's got extra energy to go fucking run 9 miles. If I fucking took roids and HGH, I'd be running 9 miles too.
Okay, so you don't follow The Rock?
Yeah, I could be working fucking 22 hours on a movie set and on 2 hours sleep and fucking, you know, getting up and doing another 22-hour day if I was all roided out and HGH'd out too. So. Well,
you know, he also puts his diet on there, like he's, you know, eating clean.
So. Yeah, of course. Yeah, I know. And LeBron's doing that too. LeBron's got, you know, LeBron eats junk food, but he doesn't have an ounce of fat on him. I wonder why.
So you don't think LeBron's on the up and up?
Yeah, everybody knows what to do to eat if you want to eat. You know, if you have grilled chicken, it's going to be good for you. Okay?
So you don't think that's
if you have a fucking McDonald's cheeseburger, it's going to be bad for you. Everybody knows that. The Rock isn't fucking teaching anybody any new shit.
So you don't think The Rock and LeBron, they're eating clean, that's why they have all that energy?
They're not. Everybody says LeBron eats like shit, which of course he does, and I'm sure The Rock does too.
Yeah, there's been some video of LeBron eating candy on the bench and drinking soda. Yeah, so I can agree with you on that. I'm not a big LeBron fan. All right. Well,
it's funny how we discontinued his Taco Tuesday. I guess that wasn't really catching on. I guess after he filed for a trademark, that he wanted to trademark Taco Tuesday, and they said no, he gave up on it.
So you didn't like how he was saying it funny? Like he was just saying it really funny?
No, and then everybody that was around them had to because they're around LeBron, so they have to. They have to kiss his ass. And you could tell they didn't want to do it. Because most black people aren't corny anyway, like white people. So for them to go, Taco Tuesday, they didn't want to do that. They're like, all right, I'm hanging out with LeBron. I got no choice.
Some people were like posting it's hilarious that he was saying it that way, though.
Yeah, no, yeah, his friends, his fucking PR team was.
You don't think LeBron's funny?
Look, he's a great basketball player, but he doesn't, he knows he's not funny.
I think he thinks he's funny. I really do. I think he thinks he's a funny.
He probably does. He thinks he's great at everything he does,
Yeah.
Yeah, but whatever.
Yeah, so I was watching one of LeBron's videos, and he has like a full quarantine beard now, like a big beard.
Yeah, so does everybody. That's the thing, and he's probably got gray in it, or he probably put gray in it just because Kevin Hart had gray in his, and then everybody else, like Joe McHale had gray, and everyone's growing a beard, and make sure there's a little gray in there. Deion Sanders, P. Diddy, they're all fucking followers. They do the same exact thing.
You don't got a quarantine beard with a little gray in it?
No, and it's like, no, and if I saw everybody doing that, I would do the opposite.
But they're all in quarantine. They kind of want to let you know that they're in quarantine, I think.
The only one I have no problem with is when Letterman retired. And, he lives in, like, Montana on a farm. Lives there, and he's whatever. When he just grew that beard, he's like, I've been a corporate fucking guy on CBS for years, and I couldn't grow my beard. I had to clean, no facial hair at all. I just want to grow this thing out and not give a shit and be unrecognizable. That's the only one I supported.
Letterman and Chuck Norris, that's it.
Yeah, exactly. Letterman just wanted to disappear from the public eye. He's like, good, now I could finally not shave and not worry about it.
Yeah, that'd be funny if Letterman shaved his beard during the quarantine. He did the complete opposite. That'd be hilarious.
Yeah, well, then everybody would do it. If it caught on, then everybody would start shaving it. It's amazing how they're all followers. They all do the same thing. It's embarrassing is what it is.
Everyone's doing the Zoom podcast now. That's the new thing.
Well, look, I mean, that I don't have a problem with because that's the only way, it's the best way to get your stuff out there, and it's easy and it's free, so I got no problem with that. Everyone's trying to figure out what's going on right now, so whatever they got to do it is fine.
Has this been the longest you've not been on stage since you started? What are you, 30 years in now?
Definitely, yeah. Definitely the longest. And I'm not going to do a comedy show from my house with no audience either.
Why not? You could put it on your Instagram Live.
Yeah, I know. Great. Yeah, I know. Because that's really going to help me sell tickets when people go back to the comedy club. These Instagram Lives that these comedians are doing, I'm sure they're going to be fucking doing sold-out theaters when everything calms down. Because people are watching them on Instagram Live.
You could do, go on your Instagram Live and you can connect with another comic and you can have a conversation.
Great. I could do it over the phone in my house, too. I don't have to for everyone else to hear.
But you could put it out there and people, can comment on what you're saying.
Great. I do 2 podcasts a week. I do a fucking radio show for Sirius XM. That's enough. That's enough.
So you're not going to do an IG Live and promote it?
You realize, no, I'm serious. I mean, any of these guys that are doing that, I don't care if they're trying to keep their name out there. It's okay to go away for a few months if you have to. You know what I mean? When everything gets back to normal, you'll be back out doing the clubs, and I'm like, okay, cool. So it's just like the baseball season, the off season is 5 months. Nobody's fucking, out there every day. Mike Trout fucking making videos. So don't forget about me. So when everything starts back, so you don't have to do Instagram Live with another comic and try out jokes, and we're going to write jokes, and here's my stand-up with no audience.
So you're not afraid they're going to, forget about you?
No. People got other things on their mind. Do you know what I mean? They got other shit going on that they're not really worried about what other comics that they see every other year when they come to town, or what they're doing.
But I think you could use this time right now, and especially with your following online, get a bunch of comics. You can get all your friends like Nick DiPaolo, Norton, and just maybe get do a song and sing a song, put it together, put it out there.
Yeah, maybe we'll do what was it? Let It Be? Is that what they did, or no? Or,
Imagine.
Yeah, that was great.
Did you like it?
That was fun. Yeah, that was fun. It was really it really cheered me up.
Did you feel unified?
I didn't even watch the whole thing. I couldn't get through it. I watched it for like fucking 8 seconds of it.
Like when Mark Ruffalo was in his bed, it didn't like pump you up.
Well, look, they're complete. They don't know what the hell's going on. You know, those Hollywoods, they don't. I think they know after they did that, after like the third day, they realized, all right, we just got to keep our mouths shut. We can't do corny shit like that anymore.
Every time I'm about to do something, you're in the back of my mind every single time. And then when I do it, when I happen to put hashtag TBT on a photo, sure enough, there you are. You're like Batman.
Okay, but I'm just curious, why do you put hashtag TBT? I know it means Throwback Thursday, but so are you hoping that someone just is searching out hashtag TBT and then finding your old photo?
Yeah, well, and I also want them to know that it's an old photo.
I think they know when it's your high school.
Well, it's kind of a reminder, too, you know?
Well, you could just write it in here. Old photo from 1992 when I was a waiter at a fucking restaurant.
But you could just take all that and go just hashtag TBT, and you're done.
Okay, but you don't. Why do you have to do the hashtag TBT? Because you want people searching that out.
But you could also
someone.
Yeah, people could hit on that and look at other Throwback Thursdays.
And who cares, though?
Well, if you kind of want to scroll through and just see like some good.
The only time anyone should post a Throwback Thursday is a former stripper. You know what I mean? You got a picture of you as a stripper. Fucking post that. I want to see that. I know you're a middle-aged soccer mom now trying to get your life together, but show me that picture from fucking 18 years ago.
And then they're allowed to do the hashtag. They're good.
Yeah, and then when you said something about you posted up, what guest you want on my podcast? Let me know and go. And then you wrote go, like people aren't gonna know. Fuck, you didn't put go, so I can't recommend somebody. They're gonna keep checking your Twitter. He fucking didn't write go. Are we supposed to start? Are we supposed to recommend? Do we want to hear Jim Norton or Ron Bennington? Fuck. I wish you would just write go because we don't know if we should start.
Well, it worked because you were in the top 5 people they picked.
Right, but you don't have to write go.
But it worked because I got Norton, I got Bennington, I got Soder, I got you, and I got Kevin Brennan.
Right, but it didn't work because you wrote go. You just wrote, hey, who do you want to see on my podcast? Who would have named some people, the top people. You didn't have to write and go.
I don't know. I just had a list of people after I said that. I don't know if it.
No, I know you got a list of people, but the go thing had nothing to do with you getting a list of people.
I mean,
everybody knew that just write down who they want or send who do you want.
I mean, you don't know that.
Nobody has to write and go. Your 10 best concerts and go. Just list your 10 best concerts if you want to play that fucking dumb game. Nobody's sitting by their computer. I'm waiting for this guy on Facebook. He didn't tell us to start.
All I'm saying is you might not be here today if I didn't say go.
No, that had nothing to do with it. And you really don't. Everybody, Chad, you're the guy that doesn't want to do what everybody else does. We've had conversations like this, and you're doing it by putting hashtag TBT and go at the end of one of your fucking tweets.
Well, you know, part of me like.
So you fit right in with these fucks. Just start growing a beard. Let's see your fucking gray beard. You're that same guy. Just fucking grow a beard and you got the trifecta. You got hashtag TBT and go. Just grow the fucking beard.
Closing out this podcast right after this is comedian Kevin Brennan. And I've been asking all the comics who's going next. What do you think of Kevin?
I love Kevin. We come from a similar background, Irish Catholic, fucking big family. You know, not a lot of attention, Catholic schools, a lot of rage, pale white guy. Yeah, so I love the guy.
Yeah, so okay, I'm gonna let him know that.
Yeah.
I appreciate you doing episode 200. You've done a lot of my podcasts forever, and I'm grateful for that. Thank you for all your support.
Yeah, no problem. And go. Yuck.
Jim Florentine, everybody. All right. Let's go to Kevin Brennan. Let's keep the joy going. Let's keep the happiness going.
What the fuck is that?
All right, as promised, the host of Misery Loves Company, the award-winning podcast, formerly of the Riotcast Network. Your headliner on the 200th episode, Kevin Brennan. Kevin, thank you for doing this. You're the closer.
You're such a hack that you think being a closer is important.
You're closing out the podcast. It was Jim Norton, Ron Bennington, Dan Soder, Florentine, and you. You're the headliner.
Yeah, but that's how they get you in the Midwest, and when you're working at hat clubs, you're like, you're headlining. I'm only getting, but I'm getting $200. You're like, yeah, but you're headlining.
Yeah, that was always like shows in L.A. Like I'd go on last at the Comedy Juice after everybody, like Jeff Ross, Dane Cook. They're like, you're headlining. I'm like, no, I'm going last.
Yeah, so that's how they get you. That's how they get people who are insecure. Hey, you're headlining. All right.
Well, I think people will tune in the whole episode to get to you because you always say something shocking and surprising.
They used to say at Stand Up New York, they would go, "Oh, you're gonna headline." It was just the check spot, and you're like, "Okay, well, like literally for auditions, you have an audition and be like, oh, you're last." Like that's a compliment, and then they'd be getting a check. You would get the check spot for like a Montreal Comedy Festival audition. You're like, "Hey, you struggled, yeah, because they weren't listening." Fucking assholes. Chad, why are you such an idiot? You know, I mean, you can't be a scared troll is what I'm saying. You got to be a troll. You can't hide your account. You can't delete your tweets. It's like nobody even knows. You're like the arson who like always starts a fire and then just runs. You're supposed to watch the fire.
I have a method to my madness. I know what I'm doing.
No, you don't, because then people ask me, like, what's going on with Chad? And then when I go to your account, there's nothing there because I'm like, what's he running from? Like, you think Bert's going to beat you up?
No, here's what I did. I protected my tweets, and I've gotten 300 Twitter followers just because everybody is so nosy and they want gossip. So I add them, and they just can't look it from afar. They have to follow me.
Oh, they have to request to be added?
Yeah, so I request them, but if I keep it open, they won't follow me. So they're stupid. I'm winning the game.
Okay. Oh, you're winning again. All right.
I
still think it looks like you're being a coward because you had your, you know. I mean, you do that anyway. You delete your tweets.
I do
delete and then you delete it.
I do delete my tweets, and the reason why is because I was up for a couple radio gigs, and they look for that stuff, and I don't want somebody to go Roseanne on me and just fucking not get a gig from it.
You're not gonna get a job. Come on, Chad.
I've already been talking to people, man. I'm looking into Plan B. We're not going to be doing stand up anytime soon.
I talked to Robert Kelly. I call him Bobby, but I talked to Robert Kelly, and he's like, yeah. He goes, it's like you got to go digital now. So I don't even know. I don't know. I was just talking to somebody about if they think they're going to open the beaches in New York and New Jersey because de Blasio closed his beaches. The mayor of New York closed his beaches. He already said beaches are closed for the summer because, I mean, I don't know. Like, do you have to go to the beach? Like, I don't know. I mean, when the summer's here, it's, you know, if the schools are closed till June, end of June, and then they go, oh, but the beaches are open, it's going to look weird, right?
Well, they just opened it up in Jacksonville, Florida. They just opened up the beaches.
Yeah, people flock to the beach, and then they're like, well, we can't open a beach because people aren't going to, you know, they're not going to social distance on a beach. The beach is going to be packed with people, and then they're going to be like, oh, we can only let, you know, 10 people at a time at the beach. It's going to be weird. So the same thing with comedy, I guess. I don't know. Bobby's like, yeah, it's just going to be bad. It's just going to be bad but nobody knows how long. Giannis Papa tweeted it's going to be years before comedy comes back, which I don't think is going to be the case. But in New York, I don't know. Who knows? We're in a foreign territory.
Yeah, New York's going to take a long time to get back running and operational again. And I had Dan on this podcast earlier. He said that you're going to see comics like cities we used to make fun of, like Erie, Pennsylvania. They're going to be like salivating to go there. Like, oh, I'm going to Erie. I'm featuring for Emo Phillips.
Why? Just because there'll be no work?
There's no work anywhere. Like the clubs are going to. There's going to be a slow roll in the cities that we once made fun of. They're going to be the ones that are operational.
Yeah. So it's all very dicey. It's all very dicey. But New York is just taking it on the chin, so to speak. So I don't even know. I don't know. I just got tired. I got kind of sick of. I don't watch the news anymore. I got sick of predicting what's going to happen. But when they postpone the fucking Masters till November, you're like, November? And then I was thinking, like, when are they gonna play a live baseball game? When are they gonna finish the NBA season? Like, they're gonna have to finish it with no fans, or maybe they'll just finish it and then start the new season. Maybe they'll finish it like in October and then just start a whole new season then.
I don't even know if they'll do the NBA season. I don't know. Baseball is an outdoor.
I think they have to do the NBA season because they got to get their money. They got to get their people will watch the games. They'll watch the playoffs because the NBA season's too long anyway. So the Corona basically did them a favor. The players are always bitching about the season's too long. So now they got a short season. So just play the playoffs. Nobody gives a fuck. The NBA's a shit show anyway because they don't have enough good players. So there's not enough good teams, and there's just not enough good games. Nobody plays defense now. They score too many points. It's like the NBA in the 70s where it was like nobody gave a shit. They have a couple of star players, but for the most part, there's no games where you have to see it. Unless it's the Lakers versus who, I don't know.
Well, I've been going down wormholes on YouTube of like Jordan and the 90s Bulls and all those old Lakers teams and the Celtics. This league is so pussified now. Like Jordan would go to the hole, he would get clotheslined by Bill Laimbeer, like a clothesline.
Yeah, the Knicks would literally beat Jordan up, like when Charles Oakley and Anthony Mason, and they would like literally just punish him, and he would still beat them. But so then they had to outlaw being a thug, and then it changed the NBA, and now it's like you can't do anything, which is fine. I'm just saying the NBA doesn't have enough compelling games, so they might as well just go to the fucking playoffs, and then next year they'll have Curry back and Durant back, and you'll have more interesting matchups. But I'm just saying, like, I can't imagine a baseball game where people are going to have social distancing at a baseball game. They'll only sell, 20% of or 50% of the seats. It's going to be fucking retarded,
Well, most attendance in baseball throughout the season's like that anyway. You go to like one of those teams that are in the bottom of the barrel. There's like 95 people there anyway.
Yeah, like in Pittsburgh, they have sections where it's all you can eat. So
yeah,
the fat fucks go, and like Cincinnati, same way. Any place that notoriously doesn't sell seats in small markets, they have to use all these gimmicks to get fans to the games. And so yeah, that will work, but they can't have like they'll have to have a policy straight across the board. So you can't have like, in Pittsburgh anyone can go, and at the Yankee Stadium only. So I just have a hard time imagining this baseball season and football. I mean, this basketball and baseball season being played out as in any way normal.
Well, I think people are going to want to go to baseball. They're not going to have to rely on gimmicks. People are going to want to go out after this. They're going to want to do anything. So they're going to give people just
baseball. They'll want to go out to baseball, but will baseball feel comfortable doing it? Like people listen. People are stupid. They're already saying, like, when you say the curve's down, and then you say people in Jacksonville go to the beach. Everyone's going to go to the beach. I want to go out and fucking lick a pole because it's like they say the curve's down, so they're basically saying don't worry as much anymore. And you're like, don't worry, and then that's going to get everybody out, and then they're going to be like, all right, well, y'all can't go out. So if they say a baseball game can be played, then maybe everyone's going to go to a baseball game, and then they'll go, this doesn't work. And then they're going to go, okay, we can only sell 20%. And then they might just go, it's not worth the headache. We'll just have games with no fans until the fall, until everything's cleared up. But it's not going to be cleared up for the fall because they don't, until they have, like, medicine that works or a vaccine, they're still going to be nervous, you know?
Yeah,
Nobody wants that blood on their hands. Nobody wants to be like, I was at a Phoenix Suns game and there was an outbreak there and everybody there is fucking dirty now.
Well, that's the thing. As soon as they come up with a vaccine or a cure, everything's going to go back to normal. Everything will go back to normal. At the end of the day, people want to get paid. These millionaires don't like doing their laundry and folding their clothes. They don't like this. So it's going to come sooner than you think.
I think one of my brothers, not Neil, one of my brothers,
Danny?
One of my brothers thinks that they don't get paid, and I was like, I don't know what the status is. He goes, the basketball players don't get paid if they don't play. So I said, well, I thought their contracts are guaranteed. He goes, yeah, but not if they don't have games. So it's like, I think if it's an act of God, the owners aren't stuck with the contracts. So I think the players, like, this is like an act of God. So they can't, like, if there's no games, they don't get paid. So everybody wants to play. I'm just saying, I don't think they'll let the fans at the games. They don't give a fuck about the fans because most of the money, all the money made in the NFL is through TV because they only have 16 games a year, so that's minimal. And baseball, they make more money at box office, but still they make most of their money on TV, and then so everyone's going to want to go to a baseball game, but they can't. They canceled the fucking British Open in July. Canceled. Not even. They don't even play in it. The last time they did that was World War II. So it's like insane that people are thinking that far ahead. That the British Open is played in 3 months from now, and they just straight up canceled it with no postponement date, no rain check. So it's fucking lunacy.
I one time helped an NBA player move out of his house, and he had a pay stub floating around. And I just looked at it. They take taxes out of each state. Like, say he plays in Minnesota, they take out Minnesota taxes. So yeah, you're right. They get paid per game. I don't know how it works out. So they're losing money. They're going to want to play something. I don't know how it's going to get resolved, but everything's questionable.
They'll play the NBA games with no fans. They'll just say that, they'll just say we're just going to play. The WNBA is just going to get canceled. They're going to say we need the stadium. So they'll play the games in the summer. Like, I just don't know when. I don't know. Maybe they'll have 10 regular season games left with no fans. They're not going to have fans. They're just not. Baseball won't have fans this year is my prediction. They're not going to fucking take the chance until they know the coast is clear. They can't take the chance because then they'll get lost. People will sue them, and if somebody dies, they'll be like, and they found out they got it at a game. There's all kind of lawsuits,
Well, that's what the WWE did with WrestleMania. They're just doing it without fans, and I guess people liked it, from what I understand.
Yeah, but the people who watch WrestleMania are fucking morons. So you know what I mean. So they're easy to appease. They're like, that was good. They're like, I say they're just slow adults, as my brother said.
So so the comic that was on before you, I asked every comic about the comic, and I asked Jim Florentine, I go, Kevin Brennan's up next. What do you have to say about him? He goes, I love Kevin. Kevin's great. We're come from the same cloth. Big Irish family, angry. He's my kind of guy.
First of all, I'm doing a character, I was on some radio show yesterday, and they were like, I was telling them all I said, listen, I go, a lot of the people that died are in nursing homes. I mean, they're not being rehabbed for the next season. So these people are waiting to die. So the corona is basically doing a good job. They're killing diabetics. They're killing fatties. They're killing I don't know. I was going to say the R word, but I don't want to.
They're thinning the herd.
Yeah, no, they're killing who we want. They're killing who we want killed. People who are
Fatties are asking for it. Diabetics are asking for it. I forget the fourth one. But they're basically going after people, and people with asthma, they're not asking for it. They're born with that, or weak immunes, but mostly people that aren't in good shape or old. So they're not killing babies. They're not killing beautiful children. They're killing fucking old. They said one nursing home killed like 47 people. I'm like, they should be thanking Corona.
Jesus Christ.
Because these people are waiting to die, so they're just cleaning fucking house.
Well, there was that case of the woman in Italy, the old lady who got corona, and they couldn't find her a ventilator, and she's like, "No, just let me die. I had a good life." She actually said, "I'm at peace with this."
I'm at peace with it if I get it. I said, "Don't give me any treatment." I mean, seriously, if you're 90, I barely want to live now, and if you're 90, there's no way you want to live. I mean, what do you wake up? You maybe make it to the toilet, and then you watch TV the rest of the day. Come on, man. So this whole every life is precious. Come on, and then especially if they're 90, it's like I posted that on I posted that on Twitter. Then I'm like, let me see how it works on Facebook. On Facebook, people who I knew were like, my mom's in a nursing home. I'm like, well, and then somebody else who I knew said, my mom's in a nursing home too. And then they started talking, the two of them, on my thread. I go, see, look what I do. I bring people together. But also, people were saying that their uncle died, and this guy died, and it goes viral. So then I made that video where I said, I was laying on my bed, and I said, I'm gonna I said I have the virus, and I said, in lieu of thoughts and prayers, send me, donate and go to my Patreon and PayPal.
Donate!
And people who didn't know were like, sent me texts like, "Are you okay?" I go, "Yeah." But then it's like nobody fact checks it. Then I tweeted, "I've been clean and sober for 20 years," and then on Facebook I said, "Clean and sober for 32 years," and it's like people who know I drink were like, "Hey, you go, girl," and I'm like, it's a fucking, I'm just kidding, but nobody checks. So it's like nobody checks to see if this person's family really died, his uncle died, or it's just all bullshit. It's like, but I'm just saying, most, the really people that are really suffering are the doctors and nurses and the EMS people. They're the ones who suffer because they got to go to work and they might get it. So they should be commended. Everybody else should just be like, shut the fuck up. This Bill Ritter, Bill Ritter from AB, you don't know him, but he's the local ABC anchor.
Yeah.
He makes a shitload of money. So I tagged him in a tweet, and I go, "Hey, man," I go, "we're not all in this together." I go, "You have a cake job reading the local news. You're still getting all your money, so just shut the fuck up." I said, I didn't spell out shut. I said STFU. So he responded. He's like, "No," he goes, "Oh, I didn't know my job was cake, but blah, 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 blah." And then somebody else commented on my comment, and then he said, "Well, he has the virus, so he's working from home." But then another tweet he said, "Well, I didn't get tested." So I'm like, so you're self-diagnosing yourself? That's why you have a little fucking a kitty cough? So that's what I'm saying. So even these fucking local news guys who make a shitload of money, he could basically be lying, Tried you moving around again?
Yeah, your audio's cutting out right now. I don't know what's going on.
My audio's cutting out?
Yeah. Something's going on.
I'm not moving. You're moving.
Oh, so this is all on me. Can you hear me?
I'll put you on speaker.
Yeah.
Wait, what's going on?
Now I can barely hear you.
Hello?
Hey, what's going on? Can you hear me? Something cut out. I don't know what happened.
You can hear me now?
Now I can. Are you covering up the receiver?
No, you can't hear me now?
Now I can.
Oh, no, I don't know. That's why I said I could call you from my home phone because it's always, it works better.
Do you want to call me from your home phone? We'll do the last 10 minutes.
It's too late now. It's too late. Is this your regular show or your Patreon?
No, this is going to be coming out on Tuesday. I put them up on Patreon earlier, but the whole episode will be out on Tuesday for free.
Okay, so my point is, this Bill Ritter was saying he has the corona, People are just saying they have the corona. People are saying a lot of stuff. Nobody fact checks anything. I said I was clean and sober for 32 years. It's like, I don't drink a lot, but I'm not clean and sober. So I'm just saying the whole thing's a big racket, as they say. Now, where are you now, Ohio?
Yeah, for now, but I'm moving to Tampa. It's a done deal.
Oh, it is? Where, you got a place?
Got a place lined up. In fact, it's with, I don't want to give out his name. It's one of the fans.
Fans of mine?
Ours. Yeah, yours too.
Who?
I don't want to say his name. I don't want to give up. I think he's just a civilian.
Oh, it's a Twitter guy?
Yeah, it's a guy who listens to both of our podcasts.
Oh, I know some people down there. They came to my show. And what did he say? He's going to put you up?
No, he's got a place, and it's a good situation, and I think Florida's going to reopen quicker than any other state besides Texas, so I'm all in.
And then he contacted you?
Yeah, he contacted me through Instagram, so we've been going back and forth. He showed me pictures of the place, and like I said, we don't know when...
He lives there? He's looking for a renter?
He's looking for a renter. He does live there, and it's a good place. It's about 10 miles from Side Splitters. So I'm going to do it. Why not?
Yeah, I probably know him because I met a lot of the guys when I was down there.
Yeah, you know him. I'm not going to give his name. I'll tell you off air.
Yeah, well, that's good, right?
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited about it.
Yeah, I like Tampa better than the East Coast, but I can't really go to Tampa because it just doesn't really make sense. Because my mother-in-law is on the East Coast, moved to Tampa, it just seems like, a little tricky.
So, Ron Bennington, Jim Norton, Dan Soder, Florentine. What do you think of those guys? They were on this episode.
Say them one by one.
Jim Norton.
I like Chip better than Jim.
Ron Bennington.
He's a good egg. I mean, he's shaped like an egg.
Dan Soder, and he actually said he likes you.
First of all, I like how people put Dan Soder like on some kind of pedestal. Like that's supposed to be a big fucking thing that he likes me. I don't give a fuck about him. Dan Soder. No, seriously, like, oh, Dan Soder likes me. Wow. Oh, maybe I'll get on his show. Oh, wow. Oh, he's on Billions. Wow. So does he have his own sitcom like Ray Romano? I was on Ray Romano's softball team. Was a fucking sitcom. Oh, he's on a show called Billions on a network called Showtime on a network that nobody watches unless it's free. So fuck Dan Soder. Seriously, fucking. Oh, I'm Paul. I can do impressions of wrestlers.
Jim Florentine.
Not a fan. Listen. What's so funny about Florentine? I don't know how many fans I got through Florentine. I know I got a lot because when I started, he told me. So when he started to, when I started my show at Lenny back in the day, he was more friends with Lenny,
Yeah.
So he goes, I gotta listen to this show, see what it sounds like, and then he listened. He goes, oh, it's great. And then I think he kept saying on his podcast how funny my show was, because a lot of people have said to me over the years, they're like, yeah, I first heard about your show listening to Florentine show, so I appreciate that.
I remember your first episode of Opie and Jim. I was in my car. I still remember I was in Twinsburg, Ohio. Jim was in...
Florentine was there. Florentine was at that show, too.
And I was texting him live, and I go, who is this guy? I know who he is, but this is fucking amazing. That's like the whole coming out party. I listened to it live.
Some lady, I forget her name, but she said she was late for work and she wouldn't get out of her car. She had like, I gotta listen to the whole show because, yeah, I don't know. I mean, it helped that Florentine was there because I was the first time I was on the show, and I wasn't like I was nervous, but I didn't know Opie at all. Obviously I knew Norton, but I just done a gig with Florentine in Valley Forge, Pennsylvania, with Vinny Brand, and Attell was doing a show there, so we were hanging around a little bit. And after the show, and it was just kind of right after that, and so it would help that Florentine was there, because Florentine's got, he's just kind of, I don't know. So anyway, he was like a calming influence, but also he's like, he he encourages you to be like a fucking he basically when you're on a roll, he kind of eggs you on a little bit, you know. Like at one point he goes, we're talking about Neil. I go, Neil's funny. He's funnier than us. And Jim goes, I think he's funnier than me. So to just say that was funny because instead of just playing along, he was like, no, I think he's funnier than me, which just made me more furious. I'm like, he's not funnier than you. He's funnier than, you know, I don't know who I picked, but I picked like somebody really bad. My point was basically Neil didn't pay his dues, and he's not as funny as like Florentine or Norton or me or, you know, anybody who's been who's been a real comic for a long time, you know. You just pick up skills along the way, and you know, and Neil was wearing like the clip they showed on Opie and Jim he was wearing like a purple T-shirt or like a ocean blue T-shirt. I'm like, who fucking dresses like that? Like to do stand up, right, Jim? And Jim's like, I think it's nice. So it was like, he was like encouraging me to be like a dick, which you know, which was funny to me and also helped me just get me more furious. So, and one thing led to another, and now I'm still unheard of, you know. But you know, I was gonna say, you know, because I was trying to fill out. You know, my wife's always like, your fans are losers, and you know, you spend too much time on Twitter and blah blah blah. So, but you know, I'm trying to figure out how to file for unemployment, you know, and you know, a lot of my fans are like legitimate people. Like you're getting a fucking apartment because of them. You know, they help me with like tax tips. I got my lawyer, the guy who negotiated my contract with Keith the Cop. I met him through Twitter. So I mean, it's like you do meet. You know, like I used to tell Bobby Kelly. I don't know if I told Bobby Kelly, but like just because Chip Chipperson is a moron doesn't mean his fans are all live with their mom. You know what I mean? His fans have money, so they should be getting a lot of ads because Chip was so popular that it's not a bunch of losers listening to a show. It's like people that are entertained by losers.
That's why they're listening to this right now, because of me.
Yeah, people think you're funny because you play the loser role very well. I mean, you're like a professional troll. I can't wait you should tape your new roommate situation and see how long that lasts.
Oh, I'm not having a roommate. I'm going solo.
No, I thought he was living. I thought he was renting. You were the guy who's renting it out to you.
It's his place. He owns it. It's his property.
Oh, so you'll be living by yourself?
Yeah.
Oh, that's sweet. It's a house or apartment?
Apartment, but that's all I need.
Oh, that's good. So he owns the building, or he just owns that apartment?
Yeah, he owns the space, the apartment.
Oh yeah, I think I know him because I met a guy.
He gave you a ride home from Side Splitters.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say because he came like on a Thursday, and then he goes, "I'll come back on Sunday," and then Sunday he gave me a ride home. I kept thinking he was gonna rape me, but he brought he had a buddy. I'm like, is that how they do a raping down in Florida? They bring a buddy. So one guy holds you down and the other guy rapes you. But they didn't rape me, so he's a good egg.
He is a good egg. And I got to tell you, Kevin, when I did my 200th episode, I had to have you on here, you and Jim. You guys have been very good to me, and I'm big fans of both of you. And thanks for everything throughout the years. Even though everyone in Hollywood hates my guts now, I don't give a shit. I have no regrets.
I know the best part is they all blame me. I mean, it really is funny that they're probably like, no, Chad was normal until he started hanging around with Brennan because, you know, you're always like a kind of guy to try to, you know, get along with people. And now you're like, fuck Bert Kreischer, fuck Joe Rogan, fuck Chris D'Elia.
I like Chris.
No, I'm just saying, but you better say you like Joe too.
No, I like Joe too. I don't know him very well.
I know, I'm just kidding.
No, but it's actually when I was on Bert's podcast, he goes, "What did Kevin Brennan do to you?" That was his actual quote.
What does that mean?
Because I was right in the heat of the Patton Oswalt shit, and I was pissing off everybody.
Oh, that's funny.
I don't regret, because I see through all the bullshit, and as I get older, I just don't care anymore. I don't want to play the game. I'm fine.
Yeah, no, it's just all. Oh, my son just came in the room with a bandana. No, it's close the door. Close the door. Close the door. No, it's not. It's like I said. It's not who you are. It's not what you are. It's what people think you are. So if people think Bert is like a crazy guy, doesn't give a shit. I mean, obviously, Bert is a businessman. So, that's, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. But it's like, but we know it. The fans think, people think Jeff Ross is an easygoing guy. Jeff Ross is a fucking cunt Jew.
Hey, there's a video online of him bringing you to the stage, like some outside stage.
Yeah. That was can you take out the Jew part? I'm trying to be less anti-Semitic. No, yeah, that was my hair looked so bad. I couldn't I didn't somebody put it up. I didn't retweet it cuz my hair looked so bad. But yeah, it was a Comedy Central, Tompkins Square Park. They did shows outside at Tompkins Square Park, which is like the Lower East Side of Manhattan. So I think there was like 96 or 97. It was like really early on. But Mark Cohen, it's working outside can be dicey because if you're not doing well, it sounds like you're really bombing. And so Mark Cohen was never like a great stand. I mean, Mark Cohen's hilarious, but he was never great at just doing a set. Like an 8-minute set for TV. So he bombed. He bombed bad. And so Manny, the guy who used to own the Comedy Cellar, he came by to watch the show. So he said, "Hey," he goes, "That was rough. You see Mark's show? That was rough." I go, "Yeah, it was pretty rough." He goes, "You know where he is?" I go, "Check the bridge." Because there was like three bridges right on the Lower East Side. So Manny laughed every time Manny made me tell the story. Like every time Mark was around, he goes, "Tell the story about when Mark bombed at Tompkins Square Park." And after a while, I was like, "Come on, Manny." But yeah, Jeff Ross, I think, was the host. I don't know if he hosted all the shows. Maybe he did. They always liked him at Comedy Central.
He's done well for himself.
You know why?
Why?
JEW. Like I said, if Jeff Ross wasn't a JEW, he would be a mailman. My roast is on tonight at the roast is on from the stand.
Oh, good. I get to relive that on Twitter.
Yeah, so I'm just warning you. So the stand is playing it on there. Like every Saturday night they play like a old roast. I think last week's was Florentine or somebody like that, Soder or somebody like that. And so this week is mine. So yeah, so you should be hearing it in about I'm guessing next 4 to 5 hours. You'll be busy on your phone.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in.
It was fun. Like I said, you gave the show a second win because then it became like the show actually was like the beginning of the show was great, and then the end of the show was great. The whole show was great, but the beginning of the show, everyone's excited. Chipperson, and then the end of the show when everybody thought he was going to bomb, they thought Patty was going to bomb, they thought Tom was going to bomb. That's why I put Tom at the end because I thought he was going to bomb, and I thought it'd be easy to follow. But then you being, and then Gino being drunk and you not doing well gave it like a second and third win. So it was fucking great. The whole thing really holds up. Adam edited it well. He took out all the excess fat. So it really plays well. Anyway.
You know what's funny is he edited out all the fat for everybody, but he said he just left mine alone.
No, I said leave Chaz alone. If a guy really killed, leave it alone. But if a guy really did bad, leave it alone. So I said leave Chad alone, leave Tom alone, leave Patty alone, because it's better you see the whole. Because I remember thinking Tom killed. Tom did 15 minutes. He sent me the clip. He wanted me to retweet it to help sell his album. He did 15 minutes, and I'm like the whole thing wasn't killer, but a lot of it was. Like even when you went, like a lot of stuff you did work. But a lot of it didn't. So it was just better if you keep it in so you have the context of the whole set,
Yeah, I actually ended up having a fun time that evening because I know how it was played out. I just
No, it was great. It was so much better than I could have ever even if you were trying to direct it to be a certain way. Like when you were up on stage and they started chanting Taffy, Jaffe, you couldn't get people to do that in a million years if you wanted them to. You know what I mean? So that's when you just go the fans are funny. Like Taffy Jaffe was there, and you didn't know what was going on. I did because I wasn't at the podium, and I know who Taffy Jaffe is. But it was so funny that you can't even script that kind of a thing.
You know how bad that fucked me up because you're always prepared for hecklers, and that came up. I didn't know. I go, what the fuck? I was lost.
Yeah, but that's what made it even funnier. Like they had the wherewithal to start chanting Taffy Jaffe, and you had the wherewithal to not know what the fuck she even was.
Like if they said you suck, I could handle that. But Taffy Jaffe, I was like, what?
They wanted her up there instead of you. Like, give us Barabbas.
Well, Kevin, I can't thank you enough. I'm going to have this out on Tuesday, and it's going to be promoted hardcore, and thanks for doing it.
All right, I'm trying to think of the guy's name in Tampa. God damn it.
Mike
Kelta?
Kelta?
I know who it is.
BT?
Huh?
BT?
No, the guy who's giving you the apartment.
Yeah, I don't well, he's not giving it to me, but
No, he's right. I'll give you his initials. GA, right?
yeah.
Those are his Twitter initials, right?
Yeah.
All right, Chad. God bless.
God bless. We'll see you soon, Kev. Kevin Brennan, everybody. Sorry about the audio. I don't know what happened. I'm going to try to fix it post. I think it came out okay, right? God damn it. Let me check. I don't know what the fuck happened. I don't think Kevin was talking to the receiver. That's my personal belief. But guys, I can't thank you enough for making this episode 200 a special one. Over the past year, the podcast has grown bigger and bigger, especially since the coronavirus hit. You guys have doubled up on the Patreon, and it's been really cool. The support, the numbers. I was doing a Instagram Live 2 days ago, and I was talking about how every single day I see the numbers grow, and it's like a gambler. I'm not a big gambler, but I understand the rush of going to the table and winning. So every day I'm looking at the numbers. I see the Patreon numbers, and they just grow and grow. And it's because of you, everyone that listens and subscribes. And there's a lot of people out there. You're like in my position. We don't have jobs right now. We're just trying to figure it out as we go. And I hope this free content I'm putting out there is helping you during a tough time. I hope it's giving you an escape. I try not to talk about the coronavirus. Kevin just went off on it, but when you have Kevin Brennan on, you just got to let him roll. Just let him go with whatever he has to say. But I can't thank you guys enough for subscribing, sharing the podcast, leaving 5-star reviews on iTunes, and it's been really cool to see this thing grow. Like I said in the beginning, I've been doing this since 2013. It's taken on many incarnations, many lives. People have suggested I do themes. People have suggested I change the name, change the cover. But I stayed consistent. I kept the original photo my former friend designed of the basketball card, me in the sweater vest shooting the basketball. The original Sit Down Zumock audio clip from Mr. Willis in the 7th grade. That's where it all started. The 7th grade bus trip to Washington, D.C., Ben Wolf recording it on a tape recorder. Mr. Willis yelling on the loudspeaker for me to sit down. Sit down, Zumock. That day forward, all throughout high school, all throughout junior high, kids, sit down, Zumock. And now it's a podcast. It's popular. I have the world's greatest comedians on here. I have some of the biggest names out there on here. Chuck D, a legendary rapper, my idol's been on here. Paul Michael Glazer, Starsky, my childhood hero's been on here. It's been a great journey. And to get to 200 and have some of my favorite comics and your favorite comics, it's been a treat. And I can't thank you enough. This has all been a labor of love, grassroots, brick by brick. I want to thank everyone from Frizon Media, Tyler, from the beginning, believing in me. I hope you're listening. Thank you, Tyler. I want to thank 87.7 Cleveland Sound, Ryan Bennis, who brought me in on Sundays and He did a Hail Mary trying to get that station going. It just didn't have it, but it opened up the doors. I got some good guests in there, and it was really cool, and I got a lot of listeners out of that. I want to thank the Comedy Pop-Up Network. Paul, my man Paul, thank you for everything. You guys were you guys believed in me, and you guys wanted to grow this and make it consistent, and you got in my ear, and there were some rough episodes where I didn't have a guest and I just had to make it happen because I wanted to keep it out every single Tuesday. I want to thank the fans. I want to thank Ashley for helping me get some of these amazing guests. Everybody on the Patreon, thank you. I'm going to give you guys a shout out right now. I don't care if this run is running long. This is the 200th episode. There's going to be a lot of ears on this, and I want to make sure you guys get the proper love you deserve. Again, Ashley, thank you. Paul, thank you. Brian Pauly, thank you. Hollywood Rob, thank you. Jacob, thank you. Jason Williams, thank you. Ken Mosca, the man. We're going to be working together down the road. Thank you. My man Larry Housel from high school, thank you. Lorraine, you supported me all year. Thank you. Lorraine Hart. Nancy, thank you. Rachel Burlew, thank you. This is everybody that has donated or subscribed $10 or more. $10, $20. I want to thank Spencer Gatson, who has a tattoo of me on him. Thank you, Spencer. Tina Felter from the Funny Stop, thank you. My man Jeff Levine at the SilkCityHotSauce.com, people. The official hot sauce of my podcast, Ray DeVito's, The G-Hole, and Misery Loves Company. Go to SilkCityHotSauce.com. I got it right now. I'm going to have it for dinner with my chicken breast. I want to thank Lisa Stewart, Perry Skincare. I want to thank Just Water. I want to thank William Cook. Thanks for all the support. Oh, yeah. Daniel Novak. Good friend of mine for a long time. Thanks, Dan Novak. I couldn't have done this without you guys. This has been a labor of love. It's continued to grow, and the numbers have been phenomenal. Oh, Laughable. Ned Kenny. Thank you, Ned Kenny. The Intero Bang. Thank you. I've never received an Academy Award or an Oscar, so my 200th episode is my thank you. I hear the music. I'm getting played off. Guys, thanks for everything. 201 will be next week. This was fun. That's a wrap.
You got it. Does work. Positive energy. Enjoy it.
Sit down, Zumock. Sit down, Zumock.
I've got at least one pair of good shoes in the back of the closet somewhere.
Same as I used to as I live my life.
get together.